6:01 in the Mile High City on this Friday, November 1st. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you're waking up in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Chris Murray is going to be joining us. Headline coming out of the Denver Gazette: new insider complaint alleges widespread cover-ups in Colorado Judicial Department. How corrupt could it be? Well, this complaint laid out over 330 pages with more than 3,100 pages of additional exhibits. This complaint was filed with 3 state commissions and the FBI. Alleges a far-reaching and ongoing conspiracy within the Colorado judiciary designed to conceal years of alleged lying, retaliation, and misuse of public funds. My goodness, it continues to fall apart here in this state. We're going to talk to Chris about that in a second. Kevin Van Winkle, Brandy Bradley are going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. They're putting pressure on Lisa Frizzell. If you remember, she joined our show yesterday. They want an audit called on the Secretary of State's office. By the way, did you see the state's now given the Secretary of State, the governor's given her 3 planes to fly voting tech operators around to change the passwords on these voting machines all over the state. We're already counting ballots. Trump's campaign has demanded that the ballot counting be stopped and reviewed and recounted. Oh my gosh, the mess continues to grow. In the 8 o'clock hour, the president of Less Government is going to join us. Could Kamala Harris really implement price controls? And then in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with Kelly Swan with Filling the Void Ministry and Jeff Hildebrandt, our poet laureate. It's an absolutely jam-packed day, but let's start with news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, TGIF, Jeff and Billy. Good to talk to you. 29 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the Trump campaign demanding Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold temporarily halt processing of mail-in ballots. Attorneys for the campaign say they also want voting systems in certain counties resecured after her office leaked voting system passwords online. The Trump campaign says it's concerned because Griswold's office was aware of the leak as early as October 24th, of course, but did not notify the public. And I can't get this great quote from George Brockler on the show Thursday out of my mind.
There's not a single thing Jena Griswold has done up to now that signals to voters that I care more about you than I care more about me, because she doesn't tell anybody, right? Like, she won't even change the passwords to these computers, because she knows if she signaled that to the clerks, they'd be like, what the hell? Why are we changing the passwords? And that would be an indication she'd done something wrong.
How does she have a job? Tina Peters is in jail for 9 years, and there's Griswold still in her office.
We are from Haiti. We came to America 6 months ago, and we already have our American citizenship. We're voting Kamala Harris. Yesterday we voted in Gwinnett County, and today we are voting in Fulton County. We have all our documents, driver's license. We invite all Haitians to come to America and bring families.
Well, isn't that special?
So that was a Haitian, not the church lady, but the other guy. He looked like he was on a plane, only been here for 6 months, has a driver's license, looks like driver's licenses, IDs, voted on Thursday, just like that. I know people from Africa and Eastern Europe who've tried to become citizens for decades and still hadn't happened. Amazing. But wait a minute. Whoa. Wait a minute. I think I heard a racist comment come out of his mouth.
We're voting Kamala Harris.
Did he just say Kamala?
We're voting Kamala Harris.
Wait, one more time.
We're voting Kamala Harris.
No, wait a minute. Let's do it one more time. Did he say Kamala? I thought you were racist if you said Kamala.
We're voting Kamala Harris.
Wow. Kamala Khan heckled at least 2 times on Thursday. She can't handle the truth. Gets stuck here, resorts to her democracy fallback, and sounds really, really angry. 4 years of this?
Says, you know what? Let me say something about this. We're here because we're fighting for a democracy. Fighting for a democracy. And understand the difference here. Understand the difference here. Moving forward. Moving forward. Understand the difference here. What we are looking at is a difference in this election. Let's move forward and see where we are. Because on the issue, for example, of freedom of choice. That's okay. That's all right.
That's all right.
That's all right. That's okay.
That's okay. She's all about democracy.
A democracy is a political system in which the people periodically, by majority vote at the polls, select their rulers. The rulers then have absolute power to make whatever laws they please by majority vote among themselves. In a constitutional republic, the people also, by majority vote at the polls, select rulers who make laws by majority vote among themselves. But the rulers cannot make any laws they please because the Constitution severely restricts their lawmaking power.
If you love your constitutional republic, vote today. Lefty Mark Cuban with another dumb statement.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I think that was on The View. But the left has amazing women like Janet Griswold supporting Kamala Khan. In Kentucky, voters trying to push the DJT box. So they push it like once, twice, over and over and over and over. It doesn't work. They press the Kamala Khan box. No problem. Ding! The check mark in the box. This garbage is happening all over the place. Hey, what does Frank Luntz think about everything that's going on leading up to Tuesday?
And so every word, every phrase, every misstep, every gaffe matters as those last remaining persuadables make their decision. I don't believe in the undecided anymore. I don't believe there's undecided.
All right. And J.D. Vance on with Joe Rogan. And let me see here. I got that one. This is pretty good. On with Joe Rogan. He likes to bake with his son.
I'm a big baker. And my 4-year-old and I are making an Oreo cake a few weeks ago. And my 4-year-old is helping me. He likes to help me out a lot when I bake. And I go to the bathroom, and the Oreos that we're supposed to put in the Oreo cake, like crumble them up and put them in the cake, like half of them are gone when I get back. And I'm like, buddy, what happened to the Oreos? And he looks at me, and without a hint of irony or shame, he says, I didn't eat the Oreos, you did. Right? So that's the way that Kamala Harris lies, is I didn't eat the Oreos, you did. Not only does she actively brag, and has her administration actively bragged about trying to arrest her political opponents, she will go out and say that if Donald Trump is the president, he's going to arrest his political opponents, even though he already was president and he didn't do that.
Did you see she went on Shannon Sharp and said that he's going to take away your Second Amendment rights?
It's crazy. The person who literally wants to confiscate firearms, Kamala Harris, is saying that Donald Trump wants to take away your Second Amendment rights. Dude, the thing that, okay, do you know who Steve Bannon is?
Yes.
Okay, fascinating guy.
Didn't he just get out?
He got out of prison yesterday.
Vote today if you haven't voted already. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. It is Friday, 26 degrees in Lafayette, 27 in Greenwood Village, 29 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and fair. A nice looking Friday here in Denver. Temperatures will be reaching the low 60s, clear tonight, a low near 30. And then a good weekend, at least it starts that way on Saturday. Highs in the 60s, but on Sunday, clouding up, cooling to the 50s with showers late. Could see some areas of rain and snow Sunday night into Monday, and trending cooler Monday into Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve coffee maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show on this Friday, November 1st. Let's dive into the news here. This coming from the Gazette. New insider complaint alleges widespread cover-ups in Colorado Judicial Department. An elaborate and precisely laid out missive that stretches more than 330 pages with better than 3,100 pages of additional exhibits. A complaint filed with 3 state commissions and the FBI alleges a far-reaching and ongoing conspiracy within Colorado's judiciary designed to conceal years of alleged lying, retaliation, and misuse of public funds that began when a purported contract for silence scandal erupted in 2019. The anonymous complaint lays out how it believes officials ranging from Colorado Supreme Court justices, the Attorney General's office, and a litany of others within the Judicial Department have allegedly misled and intentionally obstructed ongoing investigations into the scandal while ensuring additional inquiries into other details that were uncovered went nowhere. 2 of these justices, Brian Boatwright and Chief Justice Monica Marquez, faced retention votes in November for 10 years. This is substantial. And there is substantial and reliable evidence that for years, the justices of the Colorado Supreme Court, Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser, and other public officials and employees have conspired to openly engage in a pattern of misusing public funds, public resources, and the authority of their positions to unlawfully conceal evidence of misconduct by judges, attorneys, public officials, and employees. To provide some insight and comment on this is name of that you recognize on this show, Chris Murray, partner with First and 14th Law. Good morning, Chris.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, fellas. How are you?
Trying to understand this and why it's not getting a lot of media coverage right now. I mean, I know it's going to kick off a lot of investigations, or at least I hope it does, but Denver Gazette leading this article. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, man, so it is. I think part of the reason it's not getting more media attention is probably the same reason that the Denver Gazette article about this is so hard to read, right?
Right.
And that's not a knock on the Denver Gazette reporter, but if you've got a letter that is 330 pages, single spaced, right, alleging various misconduct within the Colorado Judicial Department, which this is, right, and which goes into absolute minutia of how the department operates, internal policies that this person believes were violated. explaining why everything matters as it goes along from the point of view of this person. It's just really hard for somebody outside of the judicial department or outside of the law, I think, to fairly summarize these allegations. And that's probably why I think a lot of reporters look at this and say, maybe we'll get to this after the presidential election.
Well, so help us understand what the claims are. And I think from the article, they even mentioned that because it's so detailed, this likely came from somebody that worked very closely with the Colorado Judicial Department.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think it's possible. I mean, there's only two potential sources for this, like in terms of who this person is, right? Either somebody who works in the Colorado Judicial Department or used to work in the Colorado Judicial Department, or perhaps somebody in the Attorney General's office that was working with the Colorado Judicial Department and all of this. But the very, very high level, as best as I can figure it out, and by the way, guys, I confess that I have a hard time following some of this, is that a lot of your listeners may remember a couple of years ago, former Colorado Supreme Court Chief Justice Ben Coates was publicly admonished by the Supreme Court for having approved sort of a no-bid contract for a former employee of the Judicial Department to provide some training services to the Judicial Department at the cost of something like $4 million. You guys remember that story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
it's why we have one of the amendments to, I think it's, which one?
Amendment H on the ballot.
Yeah, right.
Was, actually unanimously by the state legislature, right? So this is one of those rare things where the Republicans and the Democrats at the State House agreed to propose an amendment to the state constitution to basically change who does judicial discipline, from making sort of the Supreme Court sort of the first and the last word, to making a new commission sort of the first word that does judicial discipline. That amendment came out of that scandal. And as best as I can tell, what this person is alleging is that that scandal was sort of just the tip of the iceberg. That ever since that time, it doesn't appear that there's allegations going before it, but that basically since that allegation, they're saying, hey, look, there's been a big cover-up job done within the Judicial Department and also with the cooperation of the Attorney General's office, right, to minimize who bears consequences for this and to also tamp down follow-on investigations that were triggered by a review of all the other contracts that the Judicial Department has undertaken, and also a review of other questionable judicial discipline decisions that seemed fine at the time, but that bared revisiting after the Coates admonishment.
Talking with Chris Murray, he's a partner with First and 14th Law. So, Chris, what are the next steps for this? Will it be investigated?
I mean, honestly, guys, I hate to say this, but it's who the heck knows? I would imagine it will be. It looks like this complaint has been filed with the current judicial discipline authorities. It looks like it's been filed with the Colorado Attorney General's office. It's also been filed with federal law enforcement. And so I would imagine that somebody is going to investigate this. I would also imagine that right now, all those different folks, maybe with the exception of the Commission on Judicial Discipline, are looking at each other saying, whose job is this, right? Who has to look into this? Excuse me. And so I would just say, I'm sure it will be investigated, but what the next steps are, I have a hard time telling you because it kind of depends on who does the investigating.
How much of this, Chris Murray, we're talking about this report, a complaint, 330 pages that alleges years of concealment, lying, retaliation, misuse of public funds that has been in Colorado's judiciary department. I've lived in Colorado most of my life. Most of the judges, I think, are appointed by governors, which means that nearly all of them have been at this point appointed by Democrat governors. The entire system seems to be run by Democrats at this point. And that's at any time when you have single party dominance like that, it just creates room for corruption because they're all on the same team and you don't have the checks going back and forth. How much of this could be potentially just laid at the feet of decades and decades and decades of Democrat rule in this state at the governor's office?
Well, I mean, I love laying stuff at the feet of Democrats. And I think the broader point that you just made, Jeff, is obviously correct, right? When you get single party control, it makes people feel like they're bulletproof, right? Because there's no other option. If they know the voters won't vote for the other party, then they know that they're largely insulated from the results of their conduct. That said, I'm not sure that that's what this is, right? What I saw in the Ben Coates no bid contract scandal. And by the way, Ben Coates was actually appointed by Governor Owens, so he was a Republican appointee. What I saw there was really sort of what you see a lot of times with judges generally, right? What are judges good at? Judges are good at judging, deciding cases, right? Hearing evidence. Right? They're most of the. I mean, they were all lawyers at one point, right? So they're good at the sort of stuff that lawyers do. But the longer that they're judges, what they really get good at is hearing cases and deciding them. Our Constitution, like almost every other state constitution and like the federal Constitution, says, hey, we want judges to be independent because we don't want them to be politically influenced, right? Well, that means that if they're independent, they have to be able to run their own department, right? Because if Jared Polis is running their department or the General Assembly is running their department, then they're not actually independent of those other branches of government. But guess what that means? That means that some judge somewhere, right, they have to do things like decide when to hire somebody. They have to decide what somebody ought to be paid for services. They have to decide, hey, should this contract be put out for public bid or not? And frankly, what that means is that they have to make a lot of decisions, right, and do a lot of things that operate basically like running a business or running a government department. And sometimes they're not terribly good at that. And because they're not terribly good at that, sometimes when they make a mistake, right, or when they do something improper, it's just so glaring, right? Because they're just not terribly good at making decisions like this. And so I think what you could lay this at the feet of is that judges are independent in Colorado. Somebody has to manage their department. And if you have some kind of oversight over judges, you're going to lose the benefit of judicial independence. But if you don't have that oversight, you can get some of what you see complained about here.
Chris Murray, partner in First and 14th, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to circle back to the idea of the investigation. That's the part in this 360 complaint that I can't wrap my head around, is the who would actually be able to do the investigation, because part of the complaint alleges impropriety inside of even the Judicial Review Board, talks about the judges, talks about the process, even the AG's office. It basically comes out like, and we're going to change topics a touch here, but Jenna Griswold saying, I'm going to investigate myself to figure out how I screwed up. That kind of seems like, why would we ever trust that? And we can't trust that. How or who possibly inside of the state, if we were just spitballing, could do an investigation like that? I can't think of a single real state agency that would come back and not make it look like it was political or it wouldn't have rocks thrown at them. I can't figure out anybody but the feds, but I'm not sure the feds are the best ones to do it either. If we were spitballing in the room, who could possibly do this investigation?
Hey, Bill, I think that's a great question. And so, I mean, here's who the complaint was filed with, right? So it was filed with the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline. I'm sure you would say, I think I would say too, like, well, hold on. Isn't part of the allegation that they're part of the problem, right? That can't work.
Yeah.
Right. The state's Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation, same thing. The governor's Office of Boards and Commissions. I mean, okay, maybe, right? But I mean, the courts aren't a board or commission, right?
Yeah.
The DOJ, I'm sure, like I guess maybe the feds, but here's one that was interesting to me. Also, the fraud hotline, right?
Yeah.
Of the state auditor's office, and the fraud hotline at the state auditor's office is what it sounds like. It's a phone call that you make, right? They actually don't have a formal written complaint process at the state auditor's office fraud hotline. But what the state auditor's office can do is look into, hey, were public funds, right, committed or used in order to get some kind of collateral benefit for the state official who committed the funds, right? So was a state official, for instance, giving a contract to his buddies, right? Or was a state official giving a contract to somebody that they wanted to be quiet about something? That's what the state auditor's office can do, among other things. And so out of all of these, the one that I thought might be a little bit worthwhile, because it is independent of the rest of the state government, is the state auditor's office. Because the state auditor's office is completely independent when it comes to its ability to say, hey, hold on a second. Why did we spend $4 million on this, right? What was the purpose of this contract? And is it what the requisition for state funds says it was, or was it something else?
Now that's interesting, and I'm curious about things like, getting into more of the abuse and some of the weirder side things that the complaint goes into. But I like that idea of the auditor chasing down the cash, because you should be able to then pull that string to say that this money is tied to this decision, or it should show this pattern of corruption, especially in the long term between government agencies. That's clever. That could work. But again, they would be constrained on what they can look at, because they can only look at the dollars.
Well, I mean, that's true. And they also are going to be constrained. First thing about that, we should also say, like, look, sometimes when you've got 330 pages of detailed allegations, it's because you know a lot, and because you are telling the truth, and because there's a real problem here, right? Sometimes when you've got 330 pages of detailed allegations in single spaces, it's because you are personally incredibly aggrieved, right? And you have set to doing what an aggrieved person does, which is writing a screed, right? And so I'll just say, I don't know, right, whether any of these allegations are legitimate or not. They sort of, I tried reading through this complaint, and they read, some of them are almost too fanciful to be believed, or so far down in the weeds of how the judicial department operates that I just can't tell whether I'm being spun that something is wrong or whether it's actually wrong. So, if there's something here, though, most of the complaints get to, what did the Supreme Court do? What did the judicial department do? Use its control over money to silence people, to stop investigations, right, and to cover things up. Well, if it has used state money to do that, I think the auditor's office is probably the best place to start.
Talking with Chris Murray, partner with First and 14th Law, about a new insider complaint alleging widespread cover-ups in the Colorado Judicial Department. I want to shift a little bit over to the Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation. Chris, I got so many emails, text messages, begging for guidance on judges. I went to the Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation, and out of all the counties, there was just one judge that they felt was not fit to continue. And so we hosted George Brockler last week on this, where he goes, well, they do what they're supposed to do, but it can't tell you that much. There seems to be a lot of frustration with people about the judges, not knowing how to rate the judges, and being asked to vote on all the judges. So how do people make a good determination in this election with regards to judicial retention?
Well, so just first thing, one side note, Jeff, I feel your pain on that, right? As you guys know, this is a busy time of year for me, right? Because I do a lot of election law work, but I probably have 30 text messages from family and friends being like, tell me how to vote on all these judges. And then they'll send me, I live in Douglas County. Here's a list of judges that are up. I've been in front of maybe 3 of them ever, right? So I'm in the same position as most of the other members of the public, right? I've never been in front of most of this folks, so it's hard to give advice. The Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation, right? I used to serve on the Judicial Performance Commission for the Second Judicial for the Second Judicial District in Denver. And let me tell you what hamstrings those bodies when they are evaluating judges. Often it is an incredible lack of public response to the Office of Judicial Performance Evaluation surveys about how judges are doing. That office puts out mailers and tons of surveys to not just lawyers, but actually mostly members of the general public who have had cases in front of the different judges that are being evaluated. And guys, I got to tell you, every now and then you get like a lot of responses back for a particular judge. And that's usually when there is a big problem, right? Or when the judge is absolutely fantastic and you're just getting these glowing reviews from random members of the public. That does happen. But most of the rest of the time, you get like 5 survey responses, right? And they're incomplete. And so then it's left to the commissioners themselves, the people who are publishing this stuff for the Blue Book, right, to interview the judge, to look at the judge's case file, right, to observe the judge and try and spot a problem in a very, very limited and circumscribed review. And the truth is, that's a very difficult thing to do. And that's why you see so few recommendations that judges not be kept in office, because I think, the tie almost always is going to go to the judicial officer.
So, Chris, a lot of folks will just go straight down the ballot. No. Right. Even under the belief that, well, maybe if they don't win all that much, they'll, kick it up a notch and take their job a little bit more seriously. What are your thoughts on people, how people should vote on that?
Well, then, look, in judicial retention, I mean, really, this is the way I personally vote. If I don't know the judge, I don't vote. I'm an attorney, right? If I've never appeared in front of the judge, I don't know anything about them, I don't vote one way or the other. If I have been in front of them, and I am an attorney, I have experience with a lot of the judges that are on my ballot. If I like them, and I don't mean like they've always ruled for me or I agree with them, but if I think they're doing a good job, right, that they fairly call balls and strikes, that they explain their reasoning, that they get their work product out on time, right, that they don't leave you hanging waiting for a decision for a long period of time, I vote to retain those judges because, the truth is like, if there's judges aren't dumb, right? They know that there's about a 10 to 20% group of folks that will just vote no all the time in retention. That doesn't motivate them. They just know that it's there, right? It's just something that they're like, well, I guess that's the cost of doing business, right? Because I'm never going to be able to convince those people because those people are voting no, even though they have no idea how good of a job I'm doing or not.
And if they are removed from their position, is it Governor Polis that appoints their replacement?
That is correct. That is correct. So in Colorado, I just mentioned to you that I served for a while on the Second Judicial District Judicial Performance Commission. Well, there's also something for each judicial district and also for the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, something called a Judicial Nominating Commission, right? Those those commissions are comprised of people that are appointed by the governor and by the majority and minority parties in the state legislature. And so those people get to take applications for judgeships and make recommendations for who should be appointed. Those recommendations go to Governor Polis, and Governor Polis makes the decision.
Well, Chris Murray, partner with First and 14th Law. By the way, fantastic law firm. If you ever need free speech, religious freedom defense, or even election defense is what Chris Murray does. But wonderful firm for them. Be sure to check them out. We're going to continue to track this complaint as it moves forward. An insider complaint alleging widespread cover-up in the Colorado Judicial Department. My goodness, it's time for some change here in Colorado. Chris Murray, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, hey guys, my pleasure. Have a good weekend.
Chris Murray, First and 14th Law. All right, speaking of another great person, I want to talk to you about Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Did you know that last year over 49% of the homes listed did not sell with the real estate agent who took the initial listing? This cost home sellers thousands of dollars in lower offers and painful holding costs. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams have a track record of selling homes fast and get their home sellers 6.1% more money on average, netting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. They do this using their proven proprietary systems and guarantees. Go with the team that doesn't just make empty promises, but can actually provide proof of their experience and track record of getting homes sold for top dollar. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team is so confident in the services they provide and the results that they can get you that if you're not happy, you can cancel at any time, no cost to you. This is their cancellation promise. Call 833-301-SOLD or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's 833-301-SOLD or GAYE has the buyers.com. I saw in the Wall Street Journal the other day, this is the worst 2 consecutive years for home sales since 1995, worse than 2008. So you don't want to rely on somebody that just, you saw on a bus advertisement going by. You got to get a real pro, and that's Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. All right, so Billy, yesterday, we're going to get into this next. My kids went trick-or-treating, and the popular costume was MAGA trash.
Oh, really?
Right? Just put a trash bag on, wear a MAGA hat.
I didn't see any of those in our neighborhood. I didn't see any. I didn't see any MAGA trash.
Out in the
costumes.
rural, the kids were.
Yeah, I didn't see any of those, which is interesting.
What was the most popular costume?
Princesses. It was Disney princesses as a teen. But again, we are 3 blocks from the elementary school, and it is easier to count the houses on our block and around us that don't have kids than have kids, because much harder because everybody has kids. So it is just groups and groups and groups of kids. And a lot of the middle schoolers, a lot of meme stuff, a lot of stuff as far as social trends and TikTok and things. Some I recognized, some I didn't. Those were super popular with the middle schoolers. But yeah, overwhelmingly, it was a pile of princesses. Pile of Disney princesses. Yeah, that was number 1.
So when we come back, I'm going to detail what happened to my son when he, wearing a MAGA hat, visited a Harris Walls house.
Ooh.
You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The Attorney General of Michigan is launching an investigation after a Chinese national allegedly voted in the 2024 election, which is illegal because that person is not a U.S. citizen, so they can't vote in federal elections. However, the vote of that Chinese citizen who attends the University of Michigan will count because there is no way for election officials to find it once it's been put through the tabulator. According to the Secretary of State's office, the 19-year-old voted at U of M's Museum of Art this last Sunday. The Chinese citizen is being charged with perjury and with an unauthorized elector charge. That person is facing up to 4 years behind bars and a fine of up to $2,000. Decision 24 is just days away, and we here at Salem News Channel have you covered. Here's a preview from one of our hosts on the West Coast.
Christina, thank you. This is an important election, and Salem News has you covered. I'm Jeff Vaughn. I'll bring you the latest news and information on election night from Los Angeles, where I'll be watching the California races that could decide the balance of power in the Senate and the House. Watch Decision 24 on the Salem News Channel.
Most Americans are feeling a lot of emotions heading into Election Day, but excitement is not one of them. A new poll from the AP Center for Public Affairs Research finds that about 7 in 10 Americans report feeling anxious or frustrated about the 2024 presidential campaign.
In Dallas, Christina Owayo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve coffee maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So last night, my son dresses as MAGA trash. He puts the trash bag on. He wears the MAGA hat, and they go up to a house.
Did he do the cowboy hat or the regular MAGA hat?
The regular MAGA hat.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm just curious. Maybe with the red visual. Okay, cool. Okay.
Not the Turd Ferguson.
Yeah. Although that would have been hilarious. That one would have been spectacular. But yes, okay.
Wife dressed up like that too.
Nice.
Daughter dressed up like that. So we had a lot of MAGA trash at the house.
Cool.
But my son goes up and he's, he likes to play.
As he should, yeah.
There's a Harris Walls house, and so he walks up and rings the doorbell, and the lady opens the door, and he goes, Trump, 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 Trump. And she goes, well, you're not going to get any candy.
No way.
If you're acting like that. Or she goes, do you expect to get candy when you're acting like that? And he goes, yes.
Yes, of course. It's Halloween.
And she goes, take it back or you're not getting any candy.
Oh, seriously?
And he's like, no, I'm not going to take it back.
No,
so she denied him candy.
Oh, that's
over
awful.
His political views.
Same.
Now,
I disagree with that. I totally disagree with it.
I agree with it too. You can have some fun with it. You can be like, okay, so let's say, obviously Trump house, right?
Yeah.
Somebody comes up to our house, goes, Harris, 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 or Kamala, Kamala, Kamala. And I go, you got to have fun with it to the point of something like, in the spirit of coming together.
Yeah.
Just a few days before a contentious election, here's some candy. Please reconsider your support. Or, as a Trump supporter, here's me earning your support. Here's some candy.
That's a good one. See, for me, it's I would have done things like this. And it's like, yes, but what we're going to do is I would either give your son whatever the worst candy was in the bowl, and I'd give him one of those. And then what I would do is say, now we're going to go through a redistribution of wealth, and I would have 2 pieces of candy to every other one of the kids. So I would give the other kids more. I wouldn't deny him. I just would give the others more.
I'd be happy to give you more candy, but due to Trump's upcoming tariffs, I'm not able to give you as much candy.
Bring it with 2 of them and go, oh, but the Trump tariff, and take one back and say, I'm sorry, you can only have the one. And everybody else gets 2. I mean, that's how you do it. No, that's just mean. Crazy. That's just mean. You don't do that. We had one kid that comes up and looks in and goes, oh, your house looks interesting. Can I see? And starts to walk in the door. He's probably like 3rd grade.
I heard there's snakes here.
Yeah, and there was another kid that saw that we had the Treehouse of Horrors running on the big screen, because we always do, it's Simpsons. And one kid's like, cartoons? And starts walking in the door again. We had 2 little kids try to walk in the house last night. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
I wonder about what the reputation you have in your neighborhood with all those snakes there.
Well, they're luckily not out in public. The fun is when I order the frozen mice, because I make sure to order it and where it's labeled. And so it's a big box. And the thing is, it looks bigger than it should be because it's packed in all the styrofoam and dry ice. So it's about 3 times larger than the actual size of the frozen mice inside. But it's such a big box. Everyone in the neighborhood's like, what the hell is he feeding? What is in there? For me, I look at it as a deterrent. Anybody wandering around the neighborhood,
is funny.
I can't go and steal stuff from that house. Snakes are going to eat me.
We're getting text messages here. Publish the address. We'll go. It'll be all Devil's Night from the Bread
That's
Man.
funny.
All right, we got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, Billy, you know what the people really love?
Yes.
The loser edition.
Yes, it is the Friday loser edition of You Choose the News. Stories get a second shot at glory.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser.
You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser. Loser.
Yes, it is that time of the week in which we bring back the stories that both Jeff and Blake felt weren't worthy of our attention. To play America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. You know how it works. I have scoured the interwebs earlier this week to find these stories in my hand right here, giving them a really dumb headline so that we play this fake radio news game show because nobody in charge is awake at this hour. We are hoping they are sleeping off their diabetic coma or one too many margaritas. But either way, we've got about 7 minutes of free time. All righty, gentlemen, here we go. Your stories today. Headline number 1, it's a 0. Headline number 2, office hazards. Headline number 3, making dreams a reality, just not yours. And headline number 4, why'd you listen to us?
Let's
Mr.
start
Hunt.
with office hazards.
Yes, this is an office hazard. An Australian woman is going to be compensated for an office hazard. She was walking around her office, tripped, fell down, actually broke her leg, and injured her arm. This is horrible. However, she was working at home at the time. But according to the Australian court system, her employer can still be held liable for her injuries. She has a brand new puppy and had put up one of those baby gates as a puppy gate.
Yeah.
And as she was going over the top, she tripped over it, fell down, and hurt herself. But she was on the clock when doing so. She was involved in doing work for the office.
This is
so the
what we
Australian
want our
court system,
companies
yes,
doing in
I
our
know.
lives.
But again, it's the Australian court system, and they've held the company liable, saying, yes, you had her working from home, so you are liable for anything that happens there, which means that next time I show up on the Zoom meetings half drunk and no pants, nothing can happen. Because, it's their fault. They made me work from home. Alrighty. Blake Olson, your choice, sir. It's a 0. Making dreams a reality, just not yours, or why'd you listen to us?
It's a 0.
It is a 0. Recently in Russian court, Google faced a huge fine, $20 decillion. That sounds like a made-up number, but it's serious. 36 zeros on the number. Russia has decided to fine Google that for, doing googly things like, changing the algorithm and not letting Russian disinformation be shared and a whole bunch of other stuff. It was started by 2 Russian TV companies that traffic in propaganda. They were upset that Google was not helping them traffic in their propaganda, so they sued them and they won $1 decillion. And it's 36 zeros in the end. I'm sure they're going to get right on that one because it seems very reasonable that they would find Google more money than is on the planet. That seems incredibly logical. And I'm certain that Google's going to write that check tomorrow. Probably show up in one of those big, Publishers Clearinghouse checks. I still love the idea that the court decided we're going to find you more money than exists on the planet. The hell is that about? Oh, well. All righty. Final choice this morning. Jeff Hunt, making dreams a reality, just not yours, or why'd you listen to us?
Why'd you listen to us?
Yeah, why would you listen to us? Like many homeowners, Robert Brown purchased his home warranty to protect his finances against problems that might occur with his air conditioner. Recently, he did have a problem with the air conditioner. He reached out to the company, and because of that warranty, they said, oh, man, not a problem. We'll get up there. We'll fix it right away. It fixed, but only worked for a couple of days. After that, it went back to not working anymore. So he went on the website to follow up on the procedure. He goes in and starts going with the AI chatbot. Well, the AI chatbot says, well, absolutely, we can give you a full refund and we'll give you $3,000 towards the purchase of a new air conditioner, etc. He fills out the form and the company says, yeah, sorry, no money for you because our AI chatbot is not authorized to make that sort of an offer to you. So why did you possibly go on our website and use our AI chatbot to fill out our form to get our system to okay your money? But it was not really, you can't really do that.
All 3 of those stories, nobody wanted to take responsibility.
Yes.
It was always somebody else's fault.
Always somebody else's fault.
Right.
Yes, and that's why I blame you every day for this show. That's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you.
Oh, is there a brewing war within the Republican Party of Colorado over investigating Jenna Griswold? We'll get to it. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You get to wake up and work in the greatest country in history. And we're off and running with an entire hour dedicated to you, with engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line at 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Senator Kevin Van Winkle joins us, demanding the audit committee investigate and hold accountable Jenna Griswold for her leak and scandal cover-up. Yesterday, we hosted Lisa Frizzell on this, saying there's only so much that the audit committee can do, can call an audit, but it can't do a lot. Well, Republicans on that audit committee want to see more happening. What are we going to see? We'll hear directly from Senator Kevin Van Winkle, followed by Brandy Bradley. You're not going to want to miss this hour. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. It's 29 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, state lawmakers demanding answers after a possible breach of election security at the Colorado Secretary of State's office. A spreadsheet posted online contained a tab that showed one of two passwords needed to access voting machines in 63 of the state's 64 counties. Secretary of State Jenna Griswold was allegedly told about the problem last week, but didn't act on the information until it became public, of course. Governor Polis is now calling for an independent investigation to find out who did it and if a crime was committed. Members of the state's Legislative Audit Committee are also calling for an investigation to reassure the public about election integrity. I am not reassured right now. We are 5 days away from the election, and the Trump campaign is demanding Griswold temporarily halt the processing of mail-in ballots. Attorneys for the campaign say they also want voting systems in certain counties resecured. In a letter to Griswold, the Trump campaign says it's concerned because Griswold's office was aware of the leak as early as October 24th, but didn't notify the public. Griswold tells 9 News the leak is not a security threat and passwords are being changed out of an abundance of caution. She needs to go out of an abundance of caution. There's been a 330-page complaint filed with detailed allegations discussing years of judicial corruption in Colorado. That's a big story that a lot of reporters probably won't talk about until probably after the election. Attorney Chris Murray noted that this morning on the program, and he was on with Jeff and Billy last hour.
A big cover-up job done within the judicial department and also with the cooperation of the Attorney General's office, right, to minimize who bears consequences for this and to also tamp down follow-on investigations that were triggered by a review of all the other contracts that the judicial department has undertaken, and also a review of other questionable judicial discipline decisions that seemed fine at the time, but that bared revisiting after the codes admonished.
So we'll see where these allegations go from here. 5 days away from Election Day, Kamala Khan heckled at least 2 times on Thursday. She can't handle the truth. She got stuck, resorts to her democracy fallback, and sounds really angry.
You know what? Let me say something about this. We're here because we're fighting for a democracy.
Oh!
Fighting for a democracy. And understand the difference here. Understand the difference here. Moving forward. Understand the difference here.
I think you said that.
What we are looking at is a difference in this election. Let's move forward and see where we are. Because on the issue, for example, of freedom of choice. That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. That's okay.
Man, she sounds just like she's from Montreal. Lefty Mark Cuban with another dumb statement.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
Yeah, but the left has amazing women like Jenna Griswold supporting Kamala Khan. Tried to prevent DJT from being on the ballot in Colorado, denying half of the voters in the state of Colorado. Those are great leaders, no doubt. RFK Jr. continues to stump for Trump last night.
I asked God for 19 years to put me in a position where I could end the chronic disease epidemic and bring health back to our children. And in August, God sent me Donald Trump.
Amen. Police say a male suspect has been found dead after he allegedly shot a woman in a hospital parking lot in Greeley. The woman was shot several times in the UC Health Hospital parking lot early Thursday, but is expected to survive. Investigators tracked the suspect to a home in Evans and found a car on fire in the driveway. The suspect remained barricaded in the home until officers entered and found him dead inside. Police believe the 38-year-old shooter and the victim knew each other, and the hospital listed the shooting as a case of domestic violence. 26 in Northglenn, 27 in Englewood, 29 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. TGIF, Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and fair. A nice looking Friday here in Denver. Temperatures will be reaching the low 60s. Clear tonight, a low near 30. And then a good weekend. At least it starts that way on Saturday. Highs in the 60s. But on Sunday, clouding up, cooling to the 50s with showers late. Could see some areas of rain and snow Sunday night into Monday, and trending cooler Monday into Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. What are House Republicans, Senate Republicans doing to try to confront Jenna Griswold's incompetency and the lack of trust that the people of Colorado have in our elections? Trump yesterday sending a letter saying, halt the counting. The BIOS passwords have been exposed. They haven't been changed in some cases. And we want to review a recount of anything you've already scanned on these devices to ensure that the people of Colorado have trust. Well, Senator Kevin Van Winkle is demanding that the audit committee investigate and hold accountable Jenna Griswold for her leak and scandal cover-up. And in a release yesterday, he writes that he's a member of the Legislative Audit Committee, and he wants legislative leaders to demand an emergency meeting of the committee concerning the ever-widening election scandal and cover-up involving the Colorado Secretary of State. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show is Senator Kevin Van Winkle. Good morning, Senator. Thanks for joining the program.
Morning.
Morning, Jeff. Morning, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
So yesterday we hosted Lisa Frizzell. She sits as the chairwoman of this committee, and she kind of hinted, well, yeah, we could call it, but there's not a lot we could do because it would take a long time to do the research. But you seem to want to be a little bit more aggressive in using the Legislative Audit Committee to get to the bottom of what happened with Jenna Griswold and her leadership of the Colorado Secretary of State's office. Give us your thoughts.
Well, these are grave concerns, and there's an election going on right now. So at the very least, the audit committee could get together. We can ask the tough questions of the Secretary of State and her office that are not being answered. So far, the questions that have been asked of the Secretary of State, the answers, frankly, drive more questions than answers provided. And we need answers, and the audit committee has a special ability to form very quickly, get together in a room publicly and ask those questions that right now the Secretary of State is running from. She's not doing interviews. She's not answering questions. And as far as last I heard, even the governor didn't find out about this until the press released it, the same way me and the rest of the public did.
And there's a lot more that's coming as a result of this. The governor's now had to allocate 3 state planes to fly these technicians around to the different counties to fix the voting machines. So there's a lot more that's coming out. When did she know? Why didn't she inform the governor? Why didn't she inform other county clerks? There's a lot of questions there. What's Representative Lisa Frizzell's response been to you?
As far as I know, she's attempting to get a meeting together now, and we can ask and we can require or we can compel the Secretary of State to come forward and ask or sit and answer questions. These are just, and they're not like insanely difficult questions. They're questions simply like, when did the passwords become public? When were they released online? As far as I understand, it sounds like the passwords were released online in June. And then her office was informed. In fact, there was a whistleblower that went to the Colorado Republican Party. Colorado Republican Party does their due diligence to make sure the person's not just a lunatic off the street or something, but they're legitimate. Once it appeared that they were legitimate, the Colorado Republican Party went to the Secretary of State's office with the information. And then there were several days, at least 5 days, that went by where nothing happened. There were no passwords changed. No one was informed, and it was almost like a cover-up was being ensued. So there are lots of questions. And to the governor's credit, once he found out, he acted swiftly and is acting swiftly right now to make sure that those passwords are getting changed. However, he didn't find out himself until this week. So to the governor's credit, he's doing everything he can to make sure that these passwords are being changed and our elections are safe. But there's still a tremendous amount of questions out there, like why were they released in the first place? And then once the Secretary of State discovered they were released, why wasn't their actions taken more quickly to even allow county clerks to know what was happening?
And what happened to the employee? We don't really know. The office isn't saying what happened to the employee. They're just saying that they're no longer working there. Okay, were they terminated? Did they resign? Did they get moved to a different office? Those are fair questions. And Governor Polis yesterday called for, quote, radical transparency in this matter. He wants the Secretary of State to answer all these questions. So he seems to at least be in agreement with you that this legislative audit committee meeting should take place. Now, from my understanding, the legislative audit committee is made up with half Republicans, half Democrats. You're going to need at least one Democrat to be joining with you to call the meeting. My question, why wouldn't all the Democrats join with you to call this meeting?
Well, I think they should. I think right now the public simply needs reassurance that their elections and that their ballot is going to count, and that the elections are going to be fair and accurate. And the audit committee is one of those places where we can ask those questions and we can reassure the public, yes, instead of going in hiding from interviews and engaging in cover-ups, we'll do the opposite and we'll bring things in the light and say, yes, your ballot will count and the results will be accurate. And another thing, this needs an investigation. That's the other side of the equation that will take longer. But so far everyone's in agreement, including the Secretary of State herself, that there needs to be an investigation launched. But it cannot be by her hand-picked investigator. It needs to be from someone from the outside or someone from the legislative or even the governor's office.
Now, have you heard anything from the Attorney General, Phil Weiser, about all this?
I have not, and I haven't seen anything from our Attorney General. But I know George Brockler, running for district attorney here in Douglas County, has called for his engagement, and so far I haven't heard anything.
I mean, look, they have run around this country, the Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, claiming that the elections we have here in Colorado are the gold standard. Look how wonderful these are. They want everybody to trust what they're doing. And then you have this major fumble. I mean, huge fumble. And it wouldn't be such a big deal, I think, in most people's minds, if there wasn't another person sitting in jail, in part because the BIOS passwords from her office were inadvertently leaked online. She didn't put them up there. Somebody else put them online, but she's now sitting in prison and part of it. So they're running around calling it the gold standard. This big fumble happens the week of the elections, essentially, with the eyes of the world upon the state of Colorado. And she's doing her own investigation. She's not being transparent. And the people of Colorado want to be able to trust their elections. I asked Dave Williams the same question. I'll ask you, Senator Kevin Van Winkle. Can the people of Colorado trust this upcoming election?
Well, that's why we need to have that's why we need to have the meeting. That's why we need to ask the questions and why we need answers to those questions. I believe ultimately we will know accurate results because there will be paper ballots that will be tied to voters, and we can go back and do recount, simply what the Trump campaign is asking for right now, of recount what's already been done on these machines that have been compromised. Now, you are exactly right. We know if our Facebook password was leaked online, we would change our password in like 10 seconds. It'd be the very first thing we probably did. These passwords have been out there since June. We need to get to the bottom of why and who has them and who possibly has access to these systems. Like you said, in recent Tina Peters' trial, a senior official did testify that disclosing the passwords for even one county, her county, Mesa County, would be a grave threat to the election. Now we have them for, I think, every county or nearly every county in the state leaked out there online. And there is a tremendous double standard that we're seeing right now, where they just put Tina Peters in jail for 9 years, partially for releasing the passwords. And now we have the passwords for all counties of Colorado out there. So we do need to ask the questions. We do need to reassure the voters that their vote will count and that it's safe.
Talking with Kevin Van Winkle, he's a state senator representing Colorado Senate District 30. He's also a member of the Legislative Audit Committee, calling for the committee itself to host an emergency meeting concerning the ever-widening election scandal and cover-up involving the Colorado Secretary of State. Now, we're 4 days from an election. I don't know if you could host over the weekend. Maybe you could, but Monday seems to be the last day that you could host a legislative audit committee meeting right as the biggest demands are being made on the Secretary of State. So is it reasonable to be able to host this meeting before the election takes place?
I believe it is, because the public needs answers. We legislators, we don't just sign up to work Monday through Friday. We'll work on Saturdays, we'll work on Sundays. And keep in mind, we can do these meetings on Zoom. So it's not like we're lifting rocks of pills here. Everyone knows how to get on Zoom. Everyone can get on a meeting from all across the state of Colorado. And the Secretary of State can too, and can answer these questions. Voters need reassurance, and that's all I want to give, is reassurance to the voters of Colorado that their ballot will count. And I believe that they will, and ultimately we'll see that. But with an election happening right now and voters going to the polls this weekend and turning their ballots every day, they need those reassurances as fast as possible. And the best way I know how to do that is the audit committee that can act swiftly, can get together and ask those questions.
Kevin Van Winkle, Colorado Senate District 30, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about the fact that the BIOS passwords were leaked online from Secretary of State Janet Griswold's office. He outlined earlier those passwords were available since June. So what are we looking at as far as security of our elections? The direction I want to go with this, Kevin, is the idea of an audit. I agree with you that we need to have this taken care of and that the people need answers as quickly as possible. The problem I see in this is I don't think some of the people want the answers. They want to come to their own conclusions. And what I'm worried about is, even if we have an immediate investigation and an immediate audit, is that really going to convince voters their vote is safe? Because there are some people out there, we got phone calls from them yesterday and text messages yesterday, who were convinced this proves that Colorado's voting has been fraudulent, not just the last election, but for years and years and years. For them, this proves what they had always thought happened. Even if we have this immediate investigation, the audit comes back and we do all the changes, are those people ever going to be convinced?
Well, I sure hope so. I sure hope they will be able to find some confidence in elections. Keep in mind that we have 64 different county clerks that run their local county election. And those county clerks, they need the information too. That's one of the things that actually really makes me mad about this, is that the Secretary of State hid the facts from them. But a county clerk should be able to go back and say, Joe Smith voted on this day, his ballot counted, and multiply that by, there were 100,000 people that voted. Here are the names of 100,000 people that voted. We don't know, of course, how anyone votes, but there should be an audit that can be done afterwards that can reassure voters. Yes, there are 100,000 ballots turned in. These are the 100,000 voters, and these are the results.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I would love to see that happen. I'm worried that in that case, the people that believe in the election fraud will say, well, the Democrats or whoever it is just snuck fake votes into those piles of the already counted votes so they can change the vote. Here's a real question I have for you, though, and this is just your opinion, because I don't think you have any firsthand knowledge. But when something's going wrong, let's imagine that we're in the Secretary's of State office and something goes wrong and we figure out that these passwords have been posted. You just outlined the fact that Jenna Griswold's office didn't reach out to the county clerks to tell them about this problem. If they seem to be the first, the first defense against potential abuse of these passwords. How in the hell, if you're running the Secretary of State's office, do you not reach out immediately to all of the secretaries of state across Colorado and say, we have a problem here. We need to lock this down, and here's how we're going to go forward. That's what I can't figure out, is it seems as if Griswold is making this up as if she's going along, not as if when she discovered the problem, she went into an immediate action mode. How can we trust anything coming out of her office if it seems as if even the most basic steps, which was contact the clerks, wasn't done?
That's right. She went into complete cover-up mode. And I think that's where you're starting to see many Democrats from across the state of Colorado calling for her resignation. And this isn't just a one-time event. Remember, I think it was right before the election 2 years ago that 30,000 voter registration cards were sent purposely to illegal immigrants. Now, it was a mistake, and the Secretary of State actually came forward with that information and was transparent about it. But then we have earlier this year, our Secretary of State going to the Supreme Court asking them to keep our President Trump off the ballot. Now, so we have a pattern of events here, and I think this is where even within the Democrat Party, they're looking at saying these are very basic things that we expect of our Secretary of State, and that's why she needs to resign.
Now, here's the thing is I'll even go one further. We can go even more recently. Remember when we found those dozen potentially fake ballots in Mesa County? She came out, Jenna Griswold, and made the announcement about what was found and the investigation. People involved were like, wait, we're involved in the investigation. This kind of screws things up, but okay, whatever. Now, in this case, where it's her office that has made the boo-boo, she gets mad that people are out there talking about it because she's involved in an investigation. The first thing she didn't do, strangely enough, unlike Mesa, is come out and explain to the public what happened and the steps they were taking to correct it. When it was somebody else's mistake in Mesa, she was happy to come out and talk about it. When her office made the mistake, lips were sealed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going off of her own offices and her standards. Her standards that these bio passwords are very sensitive and they should only be handled and known by a few trusted employees of the office. And that makes sense to me. So it's her standards that are saying these password leaks is a big problem. So for her to come out and say they're not a big problem is troubling. But it's really, I want her to come out and say it's not a problem because of A, B, and C. And that's not what we're getting. There's, of course, follow-up questions that should come, and those follow-up questions might be clear and simple. But those are the questions that I want to answer, and those are where I think the audit committee can step in, and legislators can ask those questions in a public setting, and the public can get those answers.
The eyes of the nation watching, the people of Colorado demanding that we have fair, free, accountable elections here in Colorado. Senator Van Winkle calling for the Legislative Audit Committee to host an emergency meeting into this growing scandal led by Jenna Griswold. Senator Van Winkle, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll continue to track this with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your due diligence. Appreciate you.
We'll continue to follow this. And coming up next, another member of the Legislative Audit Committee, Representative Stephanie Luck, is going to join us. Brandy Bradley got pulled away on something else. And so Stephanie will be joining us coming up next. I do want to talk to you about a great event coming up with our friends over at Colorado Christian University. They invite you to an exclusive luncheon and lecture on Friday, November 15th, featuring the 48th Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, his wife, former Second Lady Karen Pence. In partnership with the Centennial Institute and CCU President Eric Hogue, this event offers a unique opportunity to engage in conversation with Vice President Pence, one of America's most dedicated public servants, sharing his insights on the future of the conservative movement. A reminder, this will be taking place 10 days after the election. There'll be lots of analysis going on. Then you're not going to want to miss this. Be among the first to experience the new Armstrong Center as CCU launches its President's Speaker Series on this historic occasion. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. Limited tickets are available for breakfast with Karen Pence, lunch with Mike Pence, and morning and evening lectures. Throughout the day, you'll engage in conversation on leadership, faith, and service with these distinguished guests. Please join CCU on November 15th for these events with Mike and Karen Pence. Go to ccu.edu/Pence to get tickets and learn more. That's ccu.edu/Pence. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wyo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
The Border Patrol Union is speaking out after Kamala Harris compared President Donald Trump supporters to Nazis. Kamala's comments coming right before Trump held his historic rally at Madison Square Garden in New York. The union is saying it's more proof that Kamala can't be trusted.
As a Hispanic and as a member of the law enforcement community, that is a tremendous slap in the face. And once again, it proves why Kamala Harris is just unfit to be president of this country. Put your trust in the one person that does not want to divide this country, Donald J. Trump.
This is yet another reason why Americans should not trust you and should support Donald J. Trump for president. You owe us an apology for your vile and disgusting comparison.
Meta Platforms Inc. has posted stronger than expected third quarter results, fueled by its advertising revenue growth and its push to incorporate artificial intelligence. But the Instagram and Facebook parent company warned that it expects a significant acceleration in infrastructure spending next year. For the 3 months that ended on September 30th, the Menlo Park, California company earned $15.69 billion, or $6.03 a share. That's up 35% from the $11.58 billion, or $4.39 a share in the same period a year ago. Revenue rose by 19%.
In Dallas, Christina Wyo, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve coffee maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us now is Stephanie Luck. She represents Colorado House of Representatives District 60. And we're asking the question, in light of the growing scandal over Jenna Griswold's leadership of the Colorado Secretary of State's office, what are Republicans going to do about it? Stephanie joins us to give us some insight. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So let's dive in. You've been talking with your colleagues. How do you plan as Republicans in the leadership of Colorado to deal with this growing scandal over Jenna Griswold's leadership in the Colorado Secretary of State's office?
Well, so I think it bears repeating that it was the Republican Party who broke this, that even though the secretary herself knew, or her office knew of this as of last week, they did not announce that to anyone else. So the party already has been doing things just in bringing it to light. As for the legislators, though, there is a move to call for the audit committee to meet and have a hearing to further investigate this. As you know, it is the legislative branch that has oversight over the executive branch. And since Jenna is the one who is supposed to be overseeing and verifying all of the rules are being followed by the county clerks, someone needs to make sure that she herself is following the rules appropriately. And that falls to the legislature. And it's my understanding that 2 letters were sent, at least 2 letters, but one by Senator Van Winkle and one by Representative Holtorf to Representative Frizzell, who is the chair of the audit committee. And it's also my understanding that steps are being taken in order to see if the requisite 5 votes on that committee can be acquired in order to call for such a hearing.
Now, in order to get to the 5 votes, you're going to need 1 Democrat to come over and join the 4 Republicans that are on the committee. But my question is, why wouldn't all the Democrats want an investigation into this? I mean, we're at a point where Governor Polis wasn't notified about this until the media told him. So he's not hearing from his own Secretary of State about the leaked passwords. Kyle Clark asking if Jenna Griswold should resign. Colorado Polls, a very progressive blog, hinting that she should resign. At this point, she's lost trust of her own party. So why wouldn't your Democrat colleagues in the House call for an investigation as well?
Well, I am hopeful that they will sign on and that they will show that elections are a nonpartisan issue and that we need to make sure that the proper views and aspirations of our people are represented by those vote counts. And so I'm confident that the 4 members of the audit committee will sign on. And if not, then the question that the public needs to ask is why? What is there to hide? We know for sure that these passwords have been linked. We know for sure that no one other than the federal cybersecurity were notified, not even the clerks. Talk about being sideswiped or surprised. We have the understanding that our county clerks were not informed until their election judges were asking questions, because the election judges were reading emails from the Colorado Republican Party. And so, I do believe that Jenna has proven that she can't be trusted to make sure that this is handled appropriately. It doesn't seem that she's applying the same standard to her own actions that she has applied to the actions of others throughout the state over time. And so I do hope and trust that the 4 Democrats on that audit committee will indeed say, yes, we need to look further into this. And moreover, there's a current issue related to how do we ensure the security of this election, but there are just process issues we all need to talk about. Why was there a file that had hidden tabs to begin with? Why is there a file where supposedly the passwords are included, but not all the passwords are current? Does that mean there are other files in the system? And how do they ensure the protection over those? Why are these things not encrypted, et cetera, et cetera? So there are a lot of questions that the people of Colorado deserve answers to. And the auditor needs to make sure that the processes in place at the Secretary of State's office are in conformance with best practices. And obviously they're not. If on a simple Excel file, you just have a few hidden tabs with the keys to the kingdom listed.
Talking to Stephanie Luck, she's a member of the Colorado House of Representatives representing District 60. Now, we had Lisa Frizzell on the show yesterday. She's the chairwoman of the Legislative Audit Committee. You and other Republicans are calling for an emergency meeting by the Legislative Audit Committee. She hinted, while we do provide audits, it typically takes a while for the audit and the whole process to kind of kick up, that type of thing. Do you think that Lisa Frizzell is providing the type of bold leadership necessary as chairwoman of the Legislative Audit Committee to get to the bottom of this when we have an election 4 days from now?
I won't necessarily speak to that. What I will say is we have to appreciate the severity, the consequential nature of what is going on right now. We have county clerks who are stuck between a rock and a hard place because, for all intents and purposes, based on the standards that have been applied in the past, they have compromised machines. And yet to do a trusted build, it's my understanding, would wipe relevant data and be a violation of law. But to proceed would also be a violation of law. We're being told that there are, redundancies in the system and there are multiple passwords, et cetera, et cetera. But if you understand, I've spoken to some cybersecurity folks and they're saying, look, those machines can be accessed remotely. There are hundreds of people who have access to them or have had access to them with that underlying password that they should never have had for months. And those folks, you can't verify that those machines are good. And so you have these county clerks saying, what do I do? Can I not use these? Should I put in place other protocols, hand counts, et cetera? This is an emergency situation. And so while Representative Frizzell is right in saying that the Legislative Audit Committee is something that is a committee that's formed to do these in-depth looks, and that all has to happen. Right now, we have to have answers that we can provide to our clerks so that they can be confident that they're not in violation of the law, because we're in fog of war. And, bad decisions get made. And then when the dust settles, what is the responsibility going to be? You wipe these systems clean, and then any future investigation, criminal investigation into this matter, because the release of passwords is a Class 5 felony. And so if any DA out there is going to pursue, or the AG, who, as I understand it, has primary jurisdiction over this, is going to pursue legal charges, criminal charges against the Secretary of State's office and all those who were complicit in this, there needs to be that evidence. And we're just walking forward without clear understanding, and the clerks need to be given guidance, and we as the legislature need to make sure that all of the proper steps are being taken in accordance with the law, that the clerks are being given that guidance. And if there's been a time for an emergency meeting, an emergency step, now is the time. This is an unprecedented situation, and we need to be able to use every tool that we have, even if it seems unconventional, in order to push this forward. And if you'll remember, in 2020, then Representative Lori Sain was the head of the audit committee, and she held a hearing in December of 2020 as a result of all of the questions coming out about the integrity of that election. And so there is a precedent for this. And I do think that we need to push in and say, how do we best give guidance and accountability and transparency and oversight right now in this critical time? Because once those results start coming in, the game changes. Not to mention the fact that, like I said, if certain steps are being taken now that either are insufficient to fully secure these machines, or that somehow run in violation of other laws, then these clerks are being put in a hard place. And so I would just say that if the opportunity is there, we need to pursue it. And the people of Colorado deserve to know that their elections are fair and just.
Yesterday, Representative Lisa Frizzell joined us, did say she's looking into hosting the meeting. I sure hope she'll demand that this investigation and examination of Jenna Griswold take place. And I hope that all the Democrats join with the Republicans in calling for this. Now, Representative Stephanie Luck, last question. You come from the legal profession. Does Jenna Griswold deserve to be prosecuted over this?
Well, I mean, I would say not as a lawyer, but as a citizen who saw what happened to Tina Peters and who saw what has been taking place in in this space generally over the last 4 years that yes, there needs to be high levels of accountability, especially for someone who has been so adamant about changing the laws and tightening them up to ensure that no one can step out of line. That same standard she expected to apply to others should apply to her.
Now, Stephanie Luck joining Jeff and Bill live. I appreciate the call for an immediate investigation, and I agree with you. I think that we should have an investigation right now. I think that Lisa Frizzell should be pushing to ask our state auditor to look into this. The question I have for you, and this is just your opinion, would an investigation matter? We're talking about reassuring Colorado voters that the vote is safe. My contention is there's a large group of Colorado voters out there that are convinced it's not safe. These are people that you're probably going to end up doing a couple of radio interviews in the next couple of days, and you're going to talk to some of those audiences that are going to view this as proof positive that they were right, that Colorado votes can't be trusted, that Tina was right. You just mentioned Tina Peters. They're going to view this release of passwords as a justification for what Tina did and say this proves that Tina was right. If we have this investigation, is it going to change anybody's mind?
Well, I mean, that the very fact that we have the opportunity to have an investigation, we don't take up on it, further affirms those people in their belief. See, the rule of law doesn't matter. Justice doesn't matter. Nobody who is in high places ever gets punished. The system is rigged against us. And so you have to have this investigation. You have to have this time of transparency where people can ask reasonable questions and unreasonable questions and get all of those questions answered. And if you don't have it, then it just feeds into the idea.
I understand that, Stephanie, but with respect, we had audits in Colorado, and those same people didn't believe the audits that were done by Republican counties. They didn't believe those. So even with this investigation, those people are going to come out and go, well, if the fix is in. Obviously, the people that fix the elections fix the investigation. How can this possibly lead them down to the path of what really happened?
Well, you don't know what the results of that investigation will be, so we don't know that for sure. But I will say that the alternative is doing nothing, and all that does is feed into the narrative even greater. So we have to do an investigation, and I call on the DAs and the sheriffs to also begin to do an investigation, because you have evidence in your counties that, or some of you do, that could be used to substantiate a criminal investigation, and those things are now being tampered with, in essence, and that needs to be considered by you and ensure that this crime doesn't get wiped from the system.
Talking with Stephanie Luck, member of the Colorado House of Representatives, representing District 60, calling for an investigation by the Legislative Audit Committee to look into Jenna Griswold and her leak of the passwords and the scandal resulting in a cover-up. Stephanie, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too. Thanks. Bye.
Man, I am glad to see the Republicans pushing on this. I think Lisa will call the meeting. She said she was looking into it yesterday. She was talking to Ledge Council on how this would all take place. And she needs to demand that the meeting take place. And she needs to demand that the Democrats come over and join her.
Yeah.
And this needs to be unanimous.
Yeah, then they do need, and I would encourage any Democrat legislators to absolutely encourage the auditor to look at it, because what is the worst that can happen if you are afraid about someone from your own political party being held responsible for a mistake? Get out right now. Resign tomorrow. That is not your role. Your role is not to protect the team. Your role is to protect the voters and the constituents of Colorado, both the ones that voted for you and the ones that didn't vote for you. It is not your role to be playing partisan politics in this way. I can agree that Republicans in some ways are playing partisan politics, but this is an opportunity and they have a legit question. It's okay for me, for Republicans to line up behind this in lockstep, because the question is legit. It's not imaginary. It's not made up. They have a question about when did Jenna Griswold, slip of the tongue, know this, and when did she start this investigation? If this happened back in June, what steps has she been taking? When did she communicate with county clerks? We don't know any of that, and that is all something the auditor could find based on the process. He's looking at dollars, but he can look at the audit side of things as far as how the process was done. That's what we need to know. And I would encourage any Democrat to absolutely, the harm of this is only going to be what happened. The thing that I see in this is this investigation is not going to convince people out there that are already convinced this thing is stolen.
Yeah, and we go to the moon and look back at the world, and they still believe that the world is flat. So I don't know, it's just always that audience. But to Stephanie's point, it's worse if you don't investigate it. And it continues to show that there's this effort to cover up, and people can't trust our elections. So that's ultimately what we want, free and fair elections. This needs to be investigated. Hey, want to talk to you about my good friend, Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy's pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He's with us on the values. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. If you just hire somebody because you saw their picture and phone number go by on a bus, well, you're not going to show up with someone that really shares your values, and you're going to show up with somebody that's not really a winner. And that's who Dan Caplis is. More than just being a great guy, he is a winner in the state of Colorado. Listen to this. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Then get this. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Boom! He's going to win. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted that he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I was ever hurt. I probably couldn't afford Dan. It's not true. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people like you from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. Look, even if you're not hurt right now, right? You're not in a car accident right at this moment. Just put his phone number in your phone so that when it happens, you're not scrambling. It's easy. Dan Caplis Law, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve Coffee Maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking Jenna Griswold and the growing scandal of the passwords being leaked online. When did she know? When did the governor know? And is she going to be prosecuted for this? Let's go to the phone lines. Maureen Arvada, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Morning.
Thank you. First of all, I vote Democratic, and I agree wholeheartedly that it needs to be investigated, and I am appalled at Griswold. And I think that she can't resign now because we've got the election in, 4 or 5 days. But I do think when this is resolved, she should resign.
Well, Maureen, I really appreciate your honesty on this. And I believe that all the Democrats should be calling for this. But I got to challenge you on one point. You know, do you think it would be better?
Pardon me. I have 2 more things I wanted to say.
Hold on. But I got a question for you. Do you think it would be better for a deputy secretary of state without all the partisanship to run the election?
I don't know, because my next point was, in investigating what happened, you have to do it in such a way that you don't further compromise the security of what may still be existing in the system. That's what I consider it very complicated, because she said that in order to change the passwords, you have to have a person with a security badge and has to be there physically, and that's to protect the existing security. So I don't begin to understand how this is going to be done, but it should be done. But that's one of the other things they have to be careful of. And finally, I do have a criticism. Griswold did not try and get Trump off the ballot. It was 2 Republicans and 2 unaffiliated who sued. And you and Republicans nationally have said she tried to do it. She was neutral during all the legal processes in the state. She said she would support what the Colorado Supreme Court did, and she did. She wrote.
Yeah, but she also went on MSNBC and talked all about how big of a threat Donald Trump is. Appreciate the call, Maureen. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You woke up and are heading to work in the greatest country in history. Let's get after it. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this right here is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Seton Motley is going to be joining us. He's the president of Less Government. Can Kamala Harris really engage in federal price controls of groceries? And what is it going to mean for you? This is a fascinating issue. I don't think she really believes in it. And when you watch this interview I'm going to play with Gretchen Whitmer, she backs away from this about as fast as you can. Price controls in your grocery stores? Really? That type of central planning? Give me a break. We're going to get into this and more in a second. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff. What a mess. Good to talk to you and Billy this morning. 29 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Voters need reassurance, and that's all I want to give is reassurance to the voters of Colorado that their ballot will count.
Kevin Van Winkle, Colorado Senate District 30, he says the Legislative Audit Committee can do it now or as soon as possible. He wants a meeting with Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, who not only tried to keep DJT off the ballot in Colorado, but watched Tina Peters go to jail for 9 years, which was all about election security on the Western Slope. What is going on? Is she incompetent or corrupt? Or is this just a mistake that didn't have anything to do with her? Van Winkle says, let's go.
We need answers, and the audit committee has a special ability to form very quickly, get together in a room publicly and ask those questions that right now the Secretary of State is running from. She's not doing interviews. She's not answering questions. And as far as last I heard, even the governor didn't find out about this until the press released it, the same way me and the rest of the public did.
House Representative Stephanie Luck on with Jeff and Bill last hour, District 60.
We have to appreciate the severity, the consequential nature of what is going on right now. We have county clerks who are stuck between a rock and a hard place because, for all intents and purposes, based on the standards that have been applied in the past, they have compromised machines. And yet to do a trusted build, it's my understanding, would wipe relevant data and be a violation of law. But to proceed would also be a violation of law.
Once again, a spreadsheet posted online contained a tab. My computer fell apart there. That showed one of two passwords needed to access voting machines in 63 of the state's 64 counties. Just days away from Election Day, and the Trump campaign is demanding that Griswold temporarily halt the processing of mail-in ballots. Attorneys for the campaign say they also want voting systems in certain counties re-secured. All right, there's been a 330-page complaint filed with detailed allegations discussing years of judicial corruption in Colorado. This will get more attention probably after the election. Attorney Chris Murray on with Jeff and Billy this morning about allegations of.
But that basically since that allegation, they're saying the judicial department has been.
I don't know what's happening
there. But that basically since that allegation, they're saying, hey, look, there's been a big cover-up job done within the judicial department and also with the cooperation of the Attorney General's office, right, to minimize who bears consequences for this, and to also tamp down follow-on investigations that were triggered by a review of all the other contracts that the judicial department has undertaken, and also a review of other questionable judicial discipline decisions that seemed fine at the time, but that bared revisiting after the court's admonishment.
Speaking of corruption, Kamala Khan heckled at least 2 times on Thursday. She got stuck, repeated some lines, and sounds really angry.
Says, you know what? Let me say something about this. We're here because we're fighting for a democracy. Fighting for a democracy. And understand the difference here. Understand the difference here. Moving forward. Moving forward. Understand the difference here.
I think she said that.
What we are looking at is a difference in this election. Let's move forward and see where we are. Because on the issue, for example, of freedom of choice. That's okay. That's all right.
That's all right. That's all right. Now,
That's all right.
That's all right. That's okay. And JD Vance on Joe Rogan, and he likes to bake with his son. This is pretty good stuff.
I'm a big baker, and my 4-year-old and I are making an Oreo cake a few weeks ago, and my 4-year-old is helping me. He likes to help me out a lot when I bake, and I go to the bathroom, and the Oreos that we're supposed to put in the Oreo cake, like crumble them up and put them in the cake, like half of them are gone when I get back, and I'm like, buddy, what happened to the Oreos? And he looks at me, and without a hint of irony or shame, he says, I didn't eat the Oreos, you did. Right? So that's the way that Kamala Harris lies, is I didn't eat the Oreos, you did. Not only does she actively brag, and has her administration actively bragged about trying to arrest her political opponents, she will go out and say that if Donald Trump is the president, he's going to arrest his political opponents, even though he already was president and he didn't do that.
That's exactly right. Mark Cuban on The View has a great comment here.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
I don't know. I think Tulsi Gabbard may have something to say about that. Police in Denver have announced the arrest of a suspect after an investigation into a deadly shooting. 28-year-old David Richardson was found dead in an alley in the area of North Verbena and North Wabash Streets in August. Police believe Richardson was shot in another location and then moved to the alley. The police department announced the arrest of 27-year-old Taylor David on Thursday. He was charged with suspicion of first-degree murder, tampering with a dead body, and tampering with evidence. 26 in Thornton, 27 in Aurora, 28 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
Well, isn't that special?
Yes, TGIF. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and fair. A nice looking Friday here in Denver. Temperatures will be reaching the low 60s. Clear tonight, a low near 30. And then a good weekend, at least it starts that way on Saturday. Highs in the 60s, but on Sunday, clouding up, cooling to the 50s with showers late. Could see some areas of rain and snow Sunday night into Monday, and trending cooler Monday into Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS.
I'm going to sing here. La, 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 don't know what happened to our music.
Well, I could provide some audio for us.
Oh, excellent.
By the way, in a second, we're going to hear from Seton Motley. He's the president of Less Government. By the way, Seton Motley, I sure hope he has a British accent. That is a great name.
Either that, he has to be the new member of the Avengers. One or the other.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah. I'm Seton Motley. Yes.
I feel like he should have a manor.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And he does secret work.
Yeah. Or at least a
to reduce the government.
Yes. Or like, they do in Game of Thrones.
Less government.
Yes, exactly.
He's going to join us in a second. So Kamala Harris.
He needs to have people. He has to have people.
That is right. And I'm sure he does have people.
I'm sure he does have people.
So
I don't have people.
He's going to join us to talk about Kamala Harris and price gouging. Here's her comments about it.
We are not going back because we also know Donald Trump would deliver tax cuts to his billionaire donors. I will deliver tax cuts to working people and the middle class. I will make sure you have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. Because I believe in honoring the dignity of work. I will enact the first ever federal ban on price gouging on groceries. Cap the price of insulin and limit out-of-pocket prescription costs for all Americans. I will fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live.
So the last thing I want is the federal government putting price controls on groceries. And to help us understand why that might be a terrible idea, Seton Motley, president of Less Government, joins the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. My parents named me Seton Motley and then wonder why I was a musician.
That's fantastic.
If you name your kid Jeeves, you get a butler. That's just how it works. And in answer to your question, yes, I have people. That's my people. Yeah.
I couldn't see. Who was that?
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
that's
very
awesome.
cute.
That's my people. That's Rufus. He's a gaggle all by himself.
I
So
bet.
yes. Yeah. So anyway, yes, I'm sorry. How are you doing?
Well, Seton, let's dive into it. You wrote an article in the Economic Standard. The Fed's desired price controls ignore reality. What are you thinking?
Well, this is so dumb. You know, I just heard J.D. Vance on Joe Rogan, talking about the dumbness, the sub-elementary level at which Kamala Harris lies. And, you know, all these lies about what Trump's going to do. Well, he didn't do any of that the first term. And her idiotic lack of understanding of how prices work and how a million factors every minute go into determining the price of X whenever X is being considered, you know, for price gouging legislation or price capping. Look, and she picked the dumbest bogeyman of them all, groceries. The profit margin in groceries is like 1 or 2%. I mean, it's the dumbest bogeyman. If you want to go after price gouging, go to Google's profits. Go to big tech. 1% or 2% on groceries is just obscene. It's absurd.
Right. And in many ways, she targets it because the rate of inflation, as it affects groceries, affects everybody. So it's something that everyone's dealing with.
This is the government two-step. They inflate the money so the prices go up because the money's worth less. And then rather than going, oh, we screwed up and inflated the money, we're going to go after the companies for raising prices to reflect the fact that we inflated the money. And that's just, of course, inherently dishonest, and it's economically stupid. Look, you cannot, anything you price cap or price, gouge legislation, whatever you want to do, is going to limit what you're capping because you're not going to make enough money to keep doing it. It's just, we had price caps on oil. I mean, we have to learn this over and over and over again. In the 70s, and I'm not quite old enough to remember that, but I read, so I know, we price capped gas. And what happened? Nobody produced any oil, so nobody produced any gasoline, and there were long lines at the gas station, and they limited how much you could buy. You sat in line for 8 hours and could only buy 5 gallons. And that's because they'd price capped gasoline. This happens every time. If you're going to price cap it to the point where they make no money, no one's going to engage in the activity that creates whatever product you price cap, and then you're out of whatever you price cap. And no one really needs food, so let's price cap food.
Well, I could think of 2 situations where I feel like maybe there's a role for government to step in. One is you always see it in like disasters, right? Everybody's trying to flee a coming hurricane, and you have the only gas station in a 30-mile radius, all of a sudden charging $100 a gallon, right? Like, I think most people would go, that's not fair. That's not right. There's probably a role for the government to step in. And then I've read other stories about where, like, the major chicken corporations, for instance, will get together to control the price of chicken themselves.
Well, that's colluding.
That's colluding, right? And it feels like there's a role for the government to step in. What do you think?
Well, no, listen, I want less government, not no government. And I think For example, there needs to be a lot more government, as I said, in the tech sector, and some other areas too. They dominate the economy to the detriment of everybody else. That's not a good thing. And the second example you gave is collusion. That's got its own separate category that's supposed to be dealt with by the government. The first is an a la carte basis. I want price gouging enforcement the way I want mail-in balloting. You have to apply on a case-by-case basis and have to justify why you're doing it, right? You can't shotgun ballots into the atmosphere and then think you're going to have a fair election. Likewise with price gouging, like you said, I looked at living in the Keys, the Florida Keys, and when they have to evacuate, it's one strip of blacktop, in and out of the Keys. And like you said, there's going to be a couple of gas stations that could conceivably price gouge in the event of a hurricane when you're trying to get out of Dodge. Yes, on that limited individual case-by-case basis, you might want to do that, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I'm going to do national legislation to cap prices on groceries. That's idiotic.
Well, I want to play some audio here and get your reaction. Here's Gretchen Whitmer being asked on NBC's Meet the Press about this plan. And it's very rare you watch a candidate run away from a bad idea as quickly as Gretchen Whitmer when she's asked about price gouging legislation coming from Kamala Harris.
She's proposing a ban on price gouging. Here is what Obama administration economist Jason Furman had to say. He said, quote, "This is not sensible policy. And I think the biggest hope is that it ends up being a lot of rhetoric and not reality. There's no upside here, and there is some downside." He warned effectively that price controls could ultimately stifle economic growth. So do you think that's the best way to bring down prices in Michigan?
Well, I think people are reading too much into what has been put out there. We know that Kamala Harris is going to be focused on building up more affordable housing. We know that Kamala Harris has already delivered on making sure that healthcare is more accessible and affordable for Americans and will protect Obamacare. That's 1 million people who have healthcare in Michigan right now that Donald Trump's been trying to rip away. That only adds costs onto people's backs. And so that's why I think this opportunity economy that Vice President Harris is talking about and laying the broad strokes for, I think shows we really do. She sees every American. She understands what people are struggling with and wants to help you keep more money in your pocket. The biggest part of our personal budgets go toward housing, go toward healthcare, go toward the fundamentals. And she's got a plan on all those fronts to help more Americans be able to get a path to prosperity.
Well, Governor, I hear you saying that folks are reading too much into it, and yet it is what the vice president is proposing. You have former President Trump calling the policies communist. The Washington Post editorial board called it a gimmick. Is this plan to ban price gouging anything more than a gimmick, Governor?
I think it speaks to Kamala Harris's values that she wants consumers to keep more money in their pockets. She wants hardworking Americans to be able to get ahead. She wants to make sure that there is corporate responsibility. We know we've got to have business growth in this country, small business growth, big business growth for good paying jobs. But we also know that you can't gouge and hurt the American consumer just to pad your bottom line. And I think there's a balance there. And I think that's what this is all about.
So you think it's smart policy, Governor?
I think that any effort we make to keep more money in Americans' pockets is worth walking the path and having the conversations and figuring out how do we make this economy work for everybody.
So that's a yes or no question. Is this good policy? And she runs away from it. I think there's a lot of Democrats out there who don't even believe in this effort.
Well, it's interesting that Welker from NBC was that antagonistic to the concept. It means that the idea has been put, the trial balloon has been put forward by the Harris campaign and Harris herself. I mean, you played the clip, and it must not poll very well because Welker is trying to. That line of questioning is, get away from this idea. It's polled terrible. Get away from it. Stop it. Now, do I think Welker likes the idea? Yes. But does it poll well? No, because she wouldn't be attacking it if it did. But yes, and also all of Whitmer's examples were just as dumb. I mean, Obamacare doubled insurance premiums and tripled deductibles, and 8 million people lost their insurance because of Obamacare. So I don't know how that makes it more affordable when your premiums double and your deductibles triple. That takes more money out of your pocket and puts it in the big insurance, fiefdoms and empires. around the country. Look, as a general rule, my thought is I want to keep more money in people's pockets. I know, let's get government more involved. That's always my rule of thumb is when I want to save people money, I get the government more involved.
Seton Motley, president of Less Government, joining Jeff and Bill live. We've been talking about the idea of price controls and price gouging. We seem to be using those terms interchangeably when they're not. Harris, in the clip that Jeff played when we started out here, refers to price gouging. How do you view that versus the idea of price fixing? Because I understand the implication, but I haven't heard the Kamala team talk about necessarily price fixing.
Well, if she wants to cap groceries, which she said in the clip, that's not price. That's price fixing. That's not price. Price gouging is the general concept of companies are charging too much for their goods and services. Price fixing is the government coming in and saying, okay, you can't charge more than X for whatever. And I don't know how they're going to do that just on a practicality basis with the 9 trillion items in each grocery store. You know, we'll have this price cap for zucchini and this price cap for canned beans and this price. I mean, it's just idiotic in so many different directions. And she spoke about specifically, as she said, and I followed up with, price fixing or price capping groceries, which is a 1 to 3% profit margin right now. And I don't know how much more you want to wring out of these people who are feeding us.
Well, I don't know if it's 1 or 3% right now, but we do know that retail grocery revenues increased more than 6% above input costs in 2021.
You're mixing revenues and profits. Revenues and profits are two different things.
But again,
revenues are up because Harris inflated the money.
No,
the revenues are up because the dollars are worth less.
Seton, they increased it above the cost of input. They increased it above what their cost was. That would qualify as price gouging. It's called reflecting inflation.
Not when you're inflation. The dollars are worth less, so they had to charge more.
No. With respect, if you're increasing it above your input costs and above the cost of inflation, that is price gouging. And
you just added a separate. You just added a second issue. You just added a second issue.
The senior director
of input is different than inflation.
Seton,
price of inflation is different than price of input. The price of input was it cost more to raise.
Seton, the senior director of pricing for Kroger said in front of the Federal Trade Commission that he did price gouge, that they did increase their prices above the cost of inflation, above the cost of their inputs. He said that in testimony.
So they made 3% instead of 2%?
No, they made 6%. No, they made 6% instead of 3%. They made 7% instead of 2%.
They feed the nation, and you want to cut them off at the knees under 6%.
No, I didn't.
That's your plan?
No, hang on.
That's your plan?
No, wait. Hang on a sec. It's not my plan. What I'm doing is I'm disagreeing with you on your premise.
Kamala Harris's plan.
Yeah,
my fault.
it's not. I'm not defending Kamala Harris's plan. What I'm talking about is the actual.
Sure you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
No, I'm not. I'm questioning your premise on your argument because you talk about the margins there at grocery stores, and that's not what the margins at grocery stores have been. They've been above cost. We see that with Johnson & Johnson. We've seen that with Pepsi. We've seen that with Coca-Cola. I can give you a long list of publicly traded companies that in their earnings calls have bragged about the fact that they have increased their cost above what their input was. When the prices to manufacture diapers went up over 25% for Procter & Gamble, they came out after those input costs fell. After wood pulp price fell, they still kept their prices above that. They kept their prices 25% artificially inflated.
Because of inflation.
No, it was above inflation. No, they decided it. The Procter & Gamble said in the earnings call that this was a windfall profit they are going to take advantage of. The CEO of Coca-Cola said they felt they were entitled to raise prices on consumers above what inflation was. He said that in the earning call.
So you want to micromanage every company's pricing?
No.
Is that what you want?
No, I'm saying
that's what you're.
No,
well,
I'm
then
not.
What's the solution? What's the solution?
Hang on.
Then what's the solution?
Hold on, Seton.
What's the solution?
Wait, you asked me.
If you're bitching about something, have a solution. What's your solution?
My solution is for you to be accurate on how you're laying out this thing. That's where I'm pushing back on.
No, you're saying
I'm not.
Coca-Cola's charging too much money. What's your solution?
The solution for me is competition. I would break up Procter & Gamble. When we walk down that soda aisle, we know that Pepsi has told us at the beginning.
I'm all for.
Wait, Seton, please let me answer. Okay, my name's on the show. I give you a lot of time. Let me answer. You asked me for a solution. I'm trying to give you a solution with respect. Give me a second here on my own damn show, please. Okay? Hang on. Now, you asked me about breaking it up. You walk down the aisle at the grocery store, you've got 3 major manufacturers that do soda. Coca-Cola and Pepsi have raised their costs above what input cost is and above inflation. They are profit-taking by any sense of the word. The CEO of Pepsi outlined in their earnings call at the beginning of this year that for the first 3 months, revenue and growth was 1%, but price growth was over 13%. In 3 months, they raised consumer price 13%. That had almost nothing to do with the amount of soda they were selling for demand or inflation. It was because they could. They needed to in order to squeeze their profit margins. And they're doing the same thing right now when you're walking down the aisle with the chips. They're doing the same thing. The reason right now you're getting a 4-for-1 on, not yet. Well, the reason you're getting 4-for-1 on Frito-Lay is because they have to increase the number of units sold. They have to goose the stock share for the next earnings call. That's why they're offering a 4-for-1. They're not worried about revenue growth. They're worrying about unit sales. And they're going to point to unit sales and say, that's why you can bet on our stock in the next quarter.
Right,
that's why. That's my solution.
Let's ask
Less
Seaton.
monopolies.
Let's have Seaton respond. Go ahead, Seaton.
I agree with you. There's too much consolidation in America. BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard own everything. I totally agree. And what you're talking about is the eventualities of what's going to happen with this consolidation. As I said at the outset, I'm for more government involvement in certain sectors. This mass consolidation is a terrible idea, and it may be too late. I think it's too late in the U.S., which is why I live in Belize now. I think it's too late to reverse this. You've got 3 major hedge funds that own chunks of everything. Like you said, you walk down the grocery aisle and there's 3 companies represented in the entire grocery store. I completely agree. But your solution, or Kamala Harris's solution, is price gouging legislation, which is the absolute wrong response to this.
You know, here's the thing, since you and I have gone back and forth, and we did get a little heated, especially myself, and I apologize for that a moment ago. You're right. You and I agree on majority of this. The reason I was pushing back is I think your premise is a little bit faulty. I think that you can make the argument better. And I think the argument you made right there is absolutely 110% correct. I am not in favor of Kamala Harris's idea about price gouging. I think it's a stupid piece of legislation. I think they're not going to be able to implement it correctly. And they're going to go after the wrong people. And they're going to do it stupidly. I agree with you. I would not support the legislation. What I push back on a lot is the idea of it is the monopolies and in some cases profit taking inside of the capitalist system is the reason.
The reason she's not going after the consolidation we're talking about is because they're funding her campaign.
Exactly, and they fund both sides' campaigns, and that's the problem. And that's where I push back on that's why I push back a little bit on the premises. I feel that the solution is there in front of you and I, and we can agree on what the solution is, but nobody in power has the spine to actually take on what the fix would be. If you had more competition inside the soda aisle, prices would drop.
Well, and hence Felice. I just, DC has been owned for so long. I was born in Alexandria, Virginia, just across the Potomac from DC. I've watched it my whole life, and it's done nothing but get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. They are bought, paid for, and owned by corporate America, by the major corporations. And that's why you get stupid laws like Obamacare, which is a huge windfall for these big insurance companies, but is awful for us. It's why you get stupid laws like Dodd-Frank, which is horrible for small banks, but great for big banks because it kills the small banks, and the big banks can buy up the carcasses at pennies on the dollar. And we lose, and this is back to the article, we get debit card fees because the small banks go away and we're left with a few big banks that screw everybody to make, to augment their profits. I'm with you on all that. The DC is terrible. They're owned by these people when they're not owned by China.
Talking to Seaton Motley, he's the president of Less Government. It's housed over at the Heartland Institute. If you want to learn more about the work,
actually, no, it's not, sir.
Oh, they're not. Okay.
Sorry. No, I'm a policy advisor at Heartland. They're very good people, but I don't want them getting in trouble for me being ascribed to them.
That's fair.
I appreciate that. So, Seaton, how do they connect with Less Government?
You can go to lessgovernment.org and sign up for the newsletter. Unlike Google and Facebook, we don't sell your data.
Well, then, that's you could do a profit margin there, Seaton. I'm teasing. I appreciate you. I hope you come back. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate the way you think. Yes. Seaton, again, thank you so much. I appreciate the energetic way that you defend yourself, and you're very intelligent, and I appreciate the conversation. And thanks for allowing it to get heated, and then for us to find a camaraderie there at the end. I think you're right on more things, and I push back on them. It made you give the impression that I think you're wrong, man. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
I'm not the traditional free market moron that a lot of these people are.
Dude, I can tell. Oh, man. Yeah. You are the best. I hope you come back again, man. This has been a ton of fun. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is great.
Yes, sir.
Seaton Motley, president of Less Government. You can go to lessgovernment.org to learn more about the good work that they're doing. Seaton, thanks again for joining the Jeff and Bill show.
Yeah, have a wonderful
What
weekend.
do you think of that conversation? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us at the Dankopolis Law text line 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Speaking of people that are doing the exact opposite of price gouging, they're providing rebates for you. My friends over at Mountain High Appliance, they have cooked up a sizzling deal for your kitchen. Now, for a limited time, receive up to a $1,500 mail-in rebate with the purchase of qualifying Bosch appliances. Enjoy the Mountain High Appliance price match guarantee and special financing options. Visit one of their 4 locations for all the details and upgrade your kitchen with Bosch appliances in Denver at East 64th, Littleton, Louisville, and Glenwood Springs. Look, you got Thanksgiving coming up. You've got Christmas coming up. You've got family members coming into town. Update those appliances with this rebate that's coming from qualifying Bosch appliances. And wow, everybody, have a great experience this holiday season. Check out my friends at Mountain High Appliance and experience the difference. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Wasn't that a lot of fun?
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
President Donald Trump continues his red-hot pace on the campaign trail in the final days leading up to the election. However, the state of New Mexico pushing back on his supporters, closing off the amphitheater parking, which is located right next to the rally, saying that Live Nation, the company that operates the amphitheater, wasn't authorized to give permission to the Trump campaign to use the parking lot. It didn't seem to matter. Tens of thousands of supporters showed up to hear the president's message.
I'm thrilled to be in this beautiful state with thousands of very proud, hardworking American patriots, which is what you are. I've come here today with a message of hope for all Americans. With your vote in this election, I will end inflation. I will stop the massive invasion of criminals into your state. And I will bring back the American dream.
Samsung Electronics has reported progress on a major supply deal for artificial intelligence-focused chips, hoping to reassure investors after a slowdown in semiconductor profits during the last quarter. The South Korean technology giant said its operating profit for the July through September period increased by more than 277% from a year earlier to $6.65 billion.
In Dallas, Christina Ohio, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve Coffee Maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A lot of text messages after that engagement with Seton Motley, president of Less Government. You guys came around. I think you agreed on a lot more.
Oh, yeah, we did. And that was the thing is I don't think he understood it first. And I'm pushing back on a lot of his premises as far as how he was setting up, not the conclusions he was coming to, but how he was setting up in the beginning. And that's where we pushed. And that was so much fun. But yeah, we agree on a lot more than we disagree. But I love his energy. I love his just the conversation. And the thing that I valued the most was he didn't make it personal.
Right.
We got right into it, but it was all an intellectual battle about what this and perception and numbers had nothing to do with a person. It was so cool.
We're talking Kamala Harris and her plan to address, quote, price gouging from those grocery stores that are making 2 to 3% profit. Oh, my goodness. Here she is. We're going to get to your phone calls. We got absolutely packed lines, but here's Kamala talking about equity versus equality.
It has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more. Equitable distribution. Giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place. So there's a big difference between equality and equity. Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same place, right? We are proud of the fact that equity is one of our guiding principles. Proud of the fact that we understand equality is important, but not everybody starts out on the same base. We see that people in our country are having an experience that is not equal. So when we talk about the work we are doing here together, it is recognizing that and being guided by this principle of what we must do in the spirit and in the interest of equity. To put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy. But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners.
It's all about equity. She sounds like a dang communist there. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Frank, Denver, good morning.
Yeah, thank you guys for that interaction. I thought that was very good. And Billy, I thought your feedback was also equally good. And you're right. The guy, you have more to agree about than to disagree about. And it's interesting. He said he'd been watching all this for many years. And, you know, I think it's important for us to counter on or to pivot on certain things. Number one, the American consumer is the most discriminating consumer in the world because we have more choice. Number two, he lives in Belize and he doesn't pay 2 or 3% markup at his grocery store. He pays 10 or 15% because of transportation costs to get those groceries down to Belize. And there are good and bad places in Belize. Number three, it's very important. The most important point of this call is to recognize the profit margins in the big grocery stores, Kroger, Safeway, Albertsons, is that 2 or 3%, because they are the ones absorbing all these individual costs of the different products that have cost more, but they have so many other factors to take into consideration. Number one, the price going up of gas to get the stuff to the stores. Number two, their profit margins are their cost on labor. I wish they would publish all their different costs. And then the spoilage factor of all the stuff that we as consumers don't see, of them throwing away or either donating moldy bread to the different places or about to be moldy bread. So there's a lot of different factors, but you're right, Billy, the gouging occurred, now call it whatever you want, gouging or not, but these companies would call it price opportunity, that to mark it up because they've had these periods of time where they didn't make so much during the pandemic. But the slickness and the sneakiness of the politicians like Kamala and to some degree Trump, they divert the conversations from the causal factors of their party. Like in this one big case, the price of gasoline going up because of diversion to solar and all the money thrown into solar, but the price of gas goes up because of the anti-petroleum agenda of the Democrats. So it's so much more complex, but we're lucky in America to have all these rich opportunities, but we have to listen closely to the politicians and their different solutions.
Yeah.
And Kabbalah is presenting the socialist / whatever communist you want to call it, or their solution using government to control these. And I think Trump is doing more consumer, what do you call it, price factors, or letting the
free market
regulation of the economy do it.
Yeah, I can see that, Frank, but where to push back on that one, and I really appreciate your time on the call, would be his policies on tariffs. And I come back to that is guaranteed to raise our prices. And so if he's worried about prices and we're talking about price gouging, the one policy that he has is going to make it worse. And that's the problem that I push back on it.
With that. Let's go to the phone lines. Gary, Denver, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS.
Oh, hi, Jeff and Bill. One obvious reasons that I disagree with Kamala is that last statement about instead of equal opportunity, equal outcome. That's backwards.
That is. I'm glad you grabbed that, Gary, because that was the thing when Jeff was playing that really ticked me off, is because she's not necessarily talking about equity, because if she wanted to, equity should be equality of opportunity. And that some people start out in different places on the racetrack, and we can acknowledge that. And you're trying to give everybody the opportunity to finish in first, not to make sure that everybody crosses the finish line together. That's different.
But people gotta deal with consequences of your decision. I think about this all the time, Bill. I majored in philosophy.
Yep.
My friends who majored in finance seeming to be living a different life. And I think about that all the time. It is not my right to demand that my friends who got degrees in finance and went and worked in business or making more money have to somehow share it and spread it around with the dude who spent 4 years studying philosophy.
And you know what I'm mad about is that I wasn't born into the Hilton family and could be as rich as Paris and become an influencer. So
no one wants to see that tape, Bill.
Yeah,
no one wants to see that tape. Gary?
Well, money isn't everything. But, one thing I wanted to correct you on, Jeff, is when you were introducing the topic of Kamala's price gouging, I was very interested in what she meant when she first announced that.
Yeah.
And what she explained was that she was interested in doing two things: reducing the price gouging that occurs during disasters, like during COVID.
Yeah.
That was part one, and I agreed with her on that. Secondly, she wasn't talking about capping prices. She was talking about anti-collusion, like the Kroger, the King Soopers, Safeway merger. And that were the two prongs of her price gouging. She's not talking about capping prices. I still disagree with with doing anything like that. So I
mean, if that's her plan, she's not communicating it well, because I played the clip where she talks about capping the prices at the grocery store, not going after colluding. And if that's the case, that's already illegal, and it just needs to be enforced.
Right. It does need to be enforced. And what I read, and the clip you played by her must have been recent, because I read the clip about what I explained a couple months ago, was enforcement, and we just don't do a good enough job about that, like what's going on now in Colorado with the lawsuit. But the last thing I'll say is Billy's correct. Even though grocery stores only make 1 or 2%, it's the price gouging that's upstream. Their input costs, that's where the gouging happens.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gary, appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
you
Gary.
know who's not gouging you?
Who?
Colorado's Best Roofing.
Oh, absolutely. They're
best. Doing fantastic job at reasonable price rates. They'll even work with your insurance company. I got a chance to go over and meet Steve and walk around his business. Here's a guy whose business is a ministry to the community. That's how he sees it. He's been trained to fix roofs. He doesn't do it like Walmart does. He's not out there with tons and tons of service guys. He does quality roof repair. Colorado's Best Roofing. You got to give them a call. Look, we got hail, snow, heavy winds coming this winter. You name it, we've got it. That's why you need a roofing company you can trust, and that's Colorado's Best Roofing. They're local, family-owned, and have served the Denver area for over 12 years. They understand our unique climate and know how to build a roof that lasts. So whether you need a small repair after a storm or a whole new roof, Colorado's Best Roofing has got you covered. And here's what I love. They offer a free, no-obligation inspection. They'll come out, take a look, give you an honest assessment. No pressure, no gimmicks, just straight talk from the pros. Plus, they work with your insurance company to make sure you get the coverage you deserve. So don't wait until the next big storm hits. Give Colorado's Best Roofing a call today at 303-797-7663 or visit them at roofingcolorado.com. That's 303-797-7663 or roofingcolorado.com. Trust the best. Colorado's Best Roofing. We'll get to your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Kamala Harris promising to go after those crazy price gougers at the grocery store, making their 2 to 3% profit. How dare you? Let's go to the phone lines. William Littleton, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning.
So look, I got a quick comment to talk about retail markups, but first I called in to say this. When I heard that comedian make that Puerto Rican joke the other day, I thought to myself, comedians don't make up things out of whole cloth. It's not funny if there isn't some little bit of truth to it. So I Googled it. Turns out Puerto Rico has an enormous problem with garbage. You have 24 landfills that are overflowing. They have more garbage per person than most people, and they don't know what to do with it. So he didn't make that up. He was just making a joke.
All right, I understand. He's a slam comedian. He roasts people. That's what he does. As a campaign strategist, though, why create problems for yourself a week out from a presidential campaign? I don't know. They probably shouldn't have included him, in my opinion.
That's a different question. All I'm saying is he didn't call the people in Puerto Rico garbage. They have a garbage problem. He was making a joke and nobody got it. But here's the thing, coming back to inventories. So here's the thing, the amount of markup is is determined by how many times you turn your inventory. So in a supermarket, they may make 2% on stuff, but they may turn that inventory 50 times a year. So they make 100% on that. You go to an art store, they don't turn their inventory every week.
Yeah, that's true, William. I wish we could have a longer conversation. We're just out of time. I appreciate the call. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations, you just woke up in the greatest country in history, and we got a whole hour planned for you with engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver. It's Friday, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Kelly Swan's going to be joining us talking about filling the void. This is a great ministry that's helping people on the streets and ministering to them. So it's not about handouts. It's not about just dropping stuff off and leaving them there, but improving the lives of folks. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, TGIF, Jeff and Billy, 34 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 62 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
We have to appreciate the severity, the consequential nature of what is going on right now. We have county clerks who are stuck between a rock and a hard place because, for all intents and purposes, based on the standards that have been applied in the past, they have compromised machines. And yet to do a trusted build, it's my understanding, would wipe relevant data and be a violation of law. But to proceed would also be a violation of law.
Agree with House Rep Stephanie Luck on with Jeff and Billy. District 60, we are 4 days away from Election Day. And is Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold corrupt or incompetent? I don't know. All I know is she wanted to rip Donald Trump off the ballot in Colorado. That tells me she wanted to dictate my life. Nearly half the voters in this state will vote for Trump, and she was ready to go. All commie on us right there. Tina Peters is serving 9 years in jail for this same election security issue, and now Grizzy is just an innocent bystander. Kevin Van Winkle, Colorado Senate District 30, says the Legislative Audit Committee can hold a meeting now or as soon as possible.
We need answers, and the Audit Committee has the special ability to form very quickly, get together in a room publicly and ask those questions that right now the Secretary of State is running from. She's not doing interviews. She's not answering questions. And as far as last I heard, even the governor didn't find out about this until the press released it, the same way me and the rest of the public did.
A spreadsheet, of course, was posted online, contained a tab that showed one of the 2 passwords needed to access voting machines in 63 of the state's 64 counties. Governor Polis is now calling for an independent investigation to find out who did it and if the crime was committed. Yes, it was committed. The Trump campaign is demanding Griswold temporarily halt the processing of mail-in ballots. Attorneys for the campaign say they also want voting systems in certain counties re-secured. Absolutely. All right, there's been a 330-page complaint filed with detailed allegations discussing years of judicial corruption in Colorado. This will get more attention, of course, after the election, more than likely. Attorney Chris Murray was on the show this morning with Jeff and Bill and about the allegations of
a big cover-up job done within the judicial department and also with the cooperation of the Attorney General's office, right, to minimize who bears consequences for this and to also tamp down follow-on investigations that were triggered by a review of all the other contracts that the judicial department has undertaken.
Speaking of corruption, Kamala Khan heckled at least 2 times on Thursday. She got stuck, repeated some lines, and sounded really angry, or maybe hungry. She's hungry for power.
You know what? Let me say something about this. We're here because we're fighting for a democracy. Fighting for a democracy. And understand the difference here. Understand the difference here. Moving forward. Moving forward. Understand the difference here.
I do. I
What we are
understand it.
looking at is a difference in this election. Let's move forward and see where we are. Because on the issue, for example, of freedom of choice, That's all right. That's all right.
That's all right. Yes, it's okay. And one thing the con likes to talk about is price gouging. She wants to cap prices. Seton Motley, CEO of Less Government, checking Kamala Khan on all of this with Jeff and Bill last hour.
We have to learn this over and over and over again. In the 70s, and I'm not quite old enough to remember that, but I read, so I know, we price capped gas. And what happened? Nobody produced any oil, so nobody produced any gasoline, and there were long lines at the gas station, and they limited how much you could buy. You sat in line for 8 hours and could only buy 5 gallons. And that's because they price capped gasoline. This happens every time.
You know, truth is, Kamala Khan, she's one of those really intelligent people, and that's what Mark Cuban thinks and believes. And he told The View, the women around Trump, not really. They're not that smart.
Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women, ever. It's just that simple.
All of them are smarter than that bozo. I need to laugh. It is Friday. DJT talking about John Bolton.
He was great for me, though, for a period of time because he was a nut job, and everybody, I could see his face get red with that stupid white mustache. And they went in. It was such a bad decision. So Bolton, see again, you get back. Bolton, a real dope. But I thought he'd be great because he was so stupid. He was like a boiler. Every time... If somebody shot down a little tiny crappy drone that cost about $15, he'd want to go to war with Russia.
And he goes on and on. I need to hear that.
Oh, I'm gonna, I sure hope we get 4 more years of that. But if we lose that on next Tuesday, it's just gonna be sad.
I've tried not to process that. That will be horrible. But it's not going to happen. Let's go. Let's have a great weekend.
Fight to make sure it doesn't.
Get out and vote. Bring all your family. Get your friends. Tell everybody. Tell strangers. Tell people with Harris T-shirts. Hey, have you voted yet? Go out and vote for DJT. Get it going. Hey, CSU plays Nevada Air Force Army is tomorrow. Wyoming takes on New Mexico. UNC, we go to California this morning, take on Cal Davis tomorrow. And I think CU is off. So that's college football. Have a great weekend. 30 in Castle Rock, 31 in Broomfield, 34 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Partly cloudy skies and fair. A nice looking Friday here in Denver. Temperatures will be reaching the low 60s. Clear tonight, a low near 30. And then a good weekend. At least it starts that way on Saturday. Highs in the 60s. But on Sunday, clouding up, cooling to the 50s with showers late. Could see some areas of rain and snow Sunday night into Monday. And trending cooler Monday into Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. For many of us, it's heartbreaking to see folks out living on the street, especially as the temperatures change. You go, gosh, what could I do to help? And it feels overwhelming, right? Because the problem is overwhelming. It's not just a lack of resources. You're oftentimes dealing with drug addiction, mental health. Is there an organization that's helping folks and really helping them, diving deeper than just providing a meal or a handout? That's Filling the Void. And joining us live in studio is Kelly Swan. He's the founder of Filling the Void, along with Tom Adams, president of the Denver chapter. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate being here. Nice to meet you, Jeff.
So let's talk about what Filling the Void does.
So we canvass the streets, going out on a mobile basis, and we're looking for people who appear that they might need a friend or some conversation or maybe a meal. And so that gives us an opportunity to just spend some time with someone for a few minutes, begin to understand their needs, And really, our ticket to that conversation is a sack lunch, and it's filled with something that is very substantive. We've got Arby's in the bags, we've got Chick-fil-A, but most importantly, we've got a note of encouragement that has a scripture and can even lead them into a prayer if they choose to pray that. But we're looking to, in these special interactions on the streets, is bring a little bit of heaven to people who are going through hell.
Well, it's a lot of spiritual issues that people are facing with. And I don't want to judge them because I face spiritual issues, right? That's why I have a pastor, somebody I need to talk to, Billy, Roman Catholic. That's why they got confession. We all got spiritual issues.
Yeah, we have our own little special rooms too.
Yeah, right.
You're jealous.
That's right. So how do you serve the spiritual needs of these folks?
So it requires intentionality. And as I mentioned, the sack lunch gives us that ticket to their attention. And as we begin to talk, great conversations start with a question. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? What are you struggling with? And interestingly, man, on the streets, people wear their lives on their sleeves.
Right.
And so they are willing to, their first sentence out of their mouth might be, "Hi, I'm Matt, and I got out of prison yesterday." And so that allows us to begin to really kind of tackle those issues of real life, whether they're emotional, mental, spiritual, relational. And a lot of the people that we find, I mean, they're living in isolation and desolation, as we all see with our eyes. But once you get inside their heads and their hearts, you can see the deeper issues. And again, just begin to, in a very small way, begin to walk through life with people.
Right. And to help them understand who God is.
That's right.
And who God created them to be, and the saving work of Jesus Christ, right? Like there's an end goal. You're not just aiming to be somebody's friend. You want to help them understand the truth, right?
That's right. Our main message to the individuals that we serve is that their life has meaning, purpose, and value. And we want to, again, just to these casual, impromptu interactions, is help people find their dignity again, and to know that there is hope, that they can have a better life. But a lot of times it just takes someone speaking that into their lives and creating that spark that can lead to lasting life change.
Do you feel like you have to break through a lot of evil, right? Drug addiction, mental health issues, almost like demonic forces that are telling them they're not worth stuff. You're not. You have no value. God's forgotten about you. Those types of lies that surround them, and you have to break through with the truth, right?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of darkness on the streets, obviously. And even yesterday, there was a street corner that I was with another one of our volunteers, and we stopped, and I'm like, "Hey, there's 7 guys. Let's stop. Let's feed them, and let's just share a quick, encouraging word." And what I asked that group of men, just again, impromptu on a street corner, was, "Hey, where's God at today?" And the responses were very interesting, because so many of the individuals we serve, they feel like God is a million miles away.
Okay.
And we want them to know, no, just look at what Scripture says and just bring the truth back right in front of them, make it visible, make it plain to them. And even in Acts, Paul said, God is not far from any one of us. And the only thing that separates us from God are those pesky, nasty things called sin. But we know that Christ covers that if we will just call out to him. And so that's what we're encouraging people to do, is, hey, know that God is only a prayer away, and that they can do that anytime, anywhere, any place.
Talking to Kelly Swan, he's the founder of Filling the Void. So you've been doing this for 20 years, Kelly. What have you learned?
I've learned a lot. And I actually, for a lot of those 20 years, I did it bivocationally. And I was in oil and gas and represented a couple of Fortune 500 companies. And I think the biggest thing I've learned personally is when you are called to do something, you can't run from it. And at different times in my life, I haven't really run from it, but I felt like, well, if I gave 50% of my life to this, that would be enough. And what I've really learned is, no, when you're called to do it, it requires 100% commitment.
So let's talk about the people you've met over the years on the street. You've got a picture of a gentleman here. Who's that? Why do you carry that picture around?
So I love helping people see the humanity behind those who are homeless. And for most of your listeners, they probably think, oh, the homeless, it's the panhandler on the corner. And what we have learned is no, there is such a deeper side to those we serve. And so a couple years ago, I was in downtown Denver. I was wrestling with multiple parking meters, and none of them, the card reader was working. And so I get to the third meter, and at that point, I kind of just lost my cool. And I was literally shaking the meter. And this homeless gentleman walks by, and he's like, "Wow, looks like you're not having a good day." And I'm like, "You're right." And again, he had no idea who I was, what I was doing, or what was in the trunk of the car. And he just said, "How can I help?" And in that moment, I'm thinking, no, that's what I'm here for, is to ask you that question. He says, "How can I help?" And I said, "Well, I need to park, and the card reader's broke." Bennett reaches into his pocket, pulls out this mountain of change, and says, "Here, take what you need." Literally, he gave me 6 quarters. I put them in the meter, and I just said, "Hey, Bennett, I got a surprise for you now." It's like, I minister to the needy. And he's like, "Well, I'm homeless." And I was like, "Brother, I got Chick-fil-A for you in the trunk." But just that selflessness, we see that all the time, and they're looking for ways to give back.
So help me understand how we address the homeless problem. You guys meet with people. That's like a great start. I've known Catholic Charities for years. They have processes out there. So I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly. I feel like if somebody really wants help, there's lots of avenues for them.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can't find it. Maybe they don't know. But I also feel like there's mental health challenges. There's drug addiction challenges. And I don't know where to start, right? So I see somebody on the street struggling with that. And I've learned from Bob Cote and our friends over at Step Denver that if I hand them $5, it's likely going to alcohol.
Absolutely.
So Douglas County here's got handouts don't help signs, and they've essentially, homeless have moved out of Douglas County because people aren't given as much. So it seems like you affirm that if somebody wants help, there's avenues to get them help. So what do we do with the folks created in God's image, struggling, drug addiction, mental health issues, that are living on the streets? What do we do? How do we help people like that?
So my advice would be support the organizations that are doing effective work on the streets. Support Catholic Charities, support Filling the Void, Denver Rescue Mission, Open Door Ministries, Denver Dream Center, a lot of organizations that are doing the down and dirty, nitty gritty work of rehabilitation. And for any individual we serve, that is not a 30-day process, 60-day. I mean, it can take years to truly lead a person into what we would consider to be full redemption. And so the best thing because everyone, you're going to see the homeless on the streets, you're going to get this tug on your heart, and your immediate reaction is, I need to help them.
Right.
And again, support the organizations that are doing it, because the last thing any of us want to do is facilitate homelessness.
Right.
And we see a lot of well-intentioned people that will give out tents and pillows and blankets and things like that. And in a way, it's saying, this is your lot in life. Let me help you stay here.
Yeah.
And that's not a good avenue.
Well, I appreciate that response. Now, I'll read the Bible, and the Bible says, give to those that ask. So am I commanded to just give to those that ask, even if I feel like it might not be helping them?
Well, I mean, a real danger to that is if you're not knowing how your money is being spent, there is a real risk. And on the streets in Denver, what our local team has told me is you can buy fentanyl for $1. So somebody who, out of the goodness of their heart, could be giving a panhandler $1, you never know. You could be a party to their death. And so that's why we say support the organizations where you know and understand how your money's being spent, that can lead to real lasting life change.
Well, if you want to learn more about Filling the Void, their website is fillingthevoid.com, fillingthevoid.com. Listen to some of these statistics. 2 national awards for community service, 25 cities where they have worked, 20 years of experience serving over 325,000 meals. Now, Kelly, 20 years of this. Tell me about, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One, somebody that you've been able to help that sits with you, that when those days are hard, you go back and you go, you know what, I did make that difference. This person has helped. And then somebody, I'll ask you the follow-up question. You can answer these in any order that sticks in your mind. And I remember this as a youth pastor. Right? I worked with Young Life for years, that I wasn't able to help, and it will never leave me.
So what keeps me going are those glimmers that we get to see from time to time where you know that you've made an impact on someone. And a week ago, I was at a low-income apartment complex, primarily for the elderly and disabled. And we were there to feed 150 people. And a lady met me at the front door, and she recognized my face. And she's like, "Hey, are you going to preach again today?" And I'm like, "What?" And she says, "Yeah, you used to come to the shelter where I stayed at." And she's like, "I will never forget the story you told us about climbing Cape Kiwanda on the Oregon coast. And now you had to carry your son up this gigantic sand dune." And she said, it was a story about perseverance. And she said, "I've never forgotten it." And so, Jeff, I started racking my brain. That story that I told her was probably in 2018 or 2019. And so here we are 5 years later, and she is reciting the sermon I had preached and the impact it had made on her. And for me, it's like, this is why we do what we do.
And it seems like her life was better too since
Yeah,
the time
so
you
she
preached
has
in a
she
shelter.
has transitioned from a shelter into permanent housing, and so she has her own apartment now. And so the stories like that, that's what keeps me going.
How about that one that burns inside you?
There's a couple people that I want to see again.
Yeah.
And their names are Doug and Cody. And they're people we've met on the streets and had long-term relationships with them. But I'm human, and I don't always bring my A game because sometimes I do get exhausted. And the emotional things we see, it can tax you. And those are two individuals where I wasn't on my A game when I was interacting with them. And I haven't seen them since. And I would love to have another opportunity to put my arms around them and hug them and just say, "Hey, last time I saw you, I was tired and I was a little down, and I didn't honor you the way I should have. And I'd love to see those guys again so I could just apologize and hug them and love them again."
Well, I'll tell you, as from one pastor to the next, Kelly, that's where I could tell you have the heart of a pastor, because you're looking at an interaction you had with somebody and you're going, the result wasn't great or where I wanted it to be. It must be my heart.
Yeah.
It must be on my side. I want to do better for these guys. That was Doug and who?
Cody.
We'll be praying for Doug and Cody and that those happen. It's always hard when you just love those people and you just wish that they could have gotten to where they could see and be fully redeemed and on that pathway. And it just doesn't always happen. It always breaks your heart as a pastor, and you wish you could have got it back. Talking with Kelly Swan, he's the founder of Fill in the Void. So you guys are going to go out there, you're going to provide meals to folks, you're going to start the conversation, and then I imagine you don't provide all the systems and help that they might need, but you can plug them in, right?
Absolutely. We have a very tight, narrow focus, and we do two things. We feed people and we offer to pray with them. And then from there, as we build the relationships and dig deeper into their lives and their needs, we're going to point them to the resources where they can go and get the deeper help that they need. And those are the great nonprofits that are, all over the Denver area. And we just, in some ways, Filling the Void is like a front door to those organizations, because we're out in the wild.
Yeah.
And as we meet people, then we can say, "Hey, have you thought about going to Open Door? They've got great programming. They can help you. It's a good place to go."
Man, I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. They're operational in Tulsa, Denver, Dallas, Houston, Oklahoma City, and Tampa. Did I get it right?
That's correct. 6 cities. We're going to feed 50,000 people this year.
Wow. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate that so much. Talking with Kelly Swan. If you want to learn more about Filling the Void, go to their website, fillingthevoid.com, fillingthevoid.com. I know if you're a lot like me, you're moved. You even have that scripture right on the front of your website, Matthew 9:36. Jesus saw the crowds and was moved with compassion. You see folks out there struggling, suffering, and you're a good person, you want to help them. And I think we've learned that homelessness has just changed over the years. It's not somebody that just needs a hot shower and a warm place to sleep and a warm meal, and they're going to go right back out to work. You're dealing with these systemic issues that go very, very deep. And if you're like me, you feel overwhelmed. What am I going to do? How am I going to fix a person by just stopping on the side of the road to talk to them? You need an entry point. You need a ministry like Filling the Void that's going to be that entry point, that's going to make sure they get fed, that's going to start the spiritual conversations to do soul change, and then plug them in to the organizations that can walk with them over the course of years to do the good work to make that redemption permanent. What was the phrase you used when you talk about the long-term redemption change? I can't remember. I could go back and listen to it, but it was a great term you had there.
What we do is very relational, and relationships can lead to redemption.
Yeah.
And we have to have a mindset. Anybody who's working in this space, again, there's not a short-term fix. It requires a long-term investment, and understanding that the people that we're working with, they're going to have ups, but they're also going to have downs. And we've got to remember to walk with them through all of that, because it's just like any of us. We're going to have good days, have bad days. And so it's not always forward progress. There are some steps back, and you've just got to recognize that and just bring patience and compassion to the equation.
I love what Kelly Swan is saying right now. He's with Filling the Void here on Jeff and Bill Live, ministry that goes out and feeds people on the street and then offers them prayer. Here's why I think this is so important, why I felt we needed to make time today for Filling the Void, because Jeff and I oftentimes criticize the people that are out there that are helping those homeless feed their addiction. And what I mean by that is legitimate feed. The people that stop by those homeless camps and out of the goodness of their heart deliver food to them. We know from friend of the show and mayor of Aurora, Mike Kaufman, when he was out on the streets undercover, that he ate much better in the homeless camps than he did inside of the shelters. He said the motivation for these people that were in the camps to get out of the situation they were in, based on the drugs, the alcohol, and especially the food that is provided for them, is a huge impediment. Kelly Swan has taken that model and changed it 180 degrees, because he goes out there and yes, he offers them the food, but he also offers them the spiritual redemption. He offers them a relationship to get them on the path to get help. Rather than just stopping by and dropping off the casserole dish and feeling good about himself, he's taking the extra steps to make sure that those people that are in that throw of addiction can get out of it. That's why Filling the Void is needed. That's why they're different than the people that Jeff and I criticize about just going around handing out food. He's doing it with a purpose to help them, not just to feel good about himself for that moment like many people do. Thank you, Kelly.
I appreciate it.
So if you want to learn more about filling the void, go to fillingthevoid.com, fillingthevoid.com. Kelly Swan, founder, joining us in studio. Tom Adams, the president of the Denver chapter. I know you've been a big impact in John Corpus's life here in the studio, one of the producers, and he was the one that set this up. Thank you for your great work with John. And Tom, I got to tell you, when I talked to John and he found out that our kids play football together, he was thrilled. He said you were one of the biggest impacts in his life. So thank you for your good work, guys. Fillingthevoid.com is where you can donate to support and help the people on the streets, and do so in a way that is actually going to help. Fillingthevoid.com. Speaking of another great organization, Billy, why don't you tell us about Balanced Well Space?
Yeah, this is kind of an odd transition that we're going to go through right now, but we're talking about filling the void in the spiritual side of life, the people out there with addiction. But I want to talk about filling the void of you personally, getting back to talking about you and your pain and how you're living your life. I know, like me, you're getting older, and there's certain things that are starting to hurt. And I thought that's just what happens when you get older. I heard all the older people in my life complaining about things that are going wrong with them for years. So I thought this is just what we do. It's not. Until I met the team at Balanced Well Space, I thought it was just going to be a long series of pain for the rest of my life. I've been living my life in pain in over 3 years. I've got all sorts of broken things: shoulder surgery, back surgery, bum knee, lots of stitches, stretched ligaments. I have a lot of things wrong with me, more than just the mental problems. But Balanced Well Space is putting me back together, and I want them to make the same change in your life they're making in mine. Here's what's different. integrative medicine. Balance Wellspace has one medical team and a whole bunch of different offices under one roof, so you can get things like chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and a whole bunch of Star Trek level non-invasive stuff that simply has to be seen and experienced to be believed. It's amazing what they can do, and the best thing is they're all working together. You go in, you see Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, the entire team. They evaluate you where you are. They do some tests, and then they ask you about what hurts and what you're not doing. That's the most important part. They want to let you set goals, and then they're going to help you achieve those goals. How? They go to work. But more importantly, every couple of weeks, they reevaluate your care. They talk to you, where you're doing. They do a personal reevaluation. They move and prod you again. And then they look at what the care has been doing. How can they change what you've been experiencing to get you to where you need to be as quickly as possible? Think about your current medical team, the doctors that you're seeing throughout the course of the month. How many times are they sitting down and talking about you? Have they had a conference call about you, a Zoom call about you in the last 3, 6, 9 months? No. They don't, because they're in different offices. They're siloed off, and they're just worried about their one individual thing, not about you as a whole person. That's different with Balance Wellspace. Check them out. They're concerned about you as a person and making sure you're feeling better. They have new offices right in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2. Wonderful parking, easy to find. BalanceWellspace.com. BalanceWellspace.com. I want them to make the same change in your life they made in mine. Check them out. And when you do call BalanceWellspace.com, tell them you heard about them here on the Jeff and Bill Show, because boy, does it help us out a lot.
Dude, we're helping people all over the place.
Yes, we are.
Helping your body with Balance Wellspace, helping those out on the street with feeding the void. So filling the void. I keep saying that. Filling the void. Because they are feeding people.
They are, and that's why it's hard.
Fillingthevoid.com. All right, we'll continue. Coming up next, some cowboy poetry on the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Ohio in Dallas, and here are your top stories. 400 people are losing their jobs as PepsiCo says it plans to close 4 U.S. bottling plants as part of its efforts to cut costs and streamline its operations as a result of declining sales. The company said the closures will impact 136 workers in Cincinnati, 131 in Chicago, 127 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and about 50 in Atlanta, Georgia. The Chicago plant is the only one that will fully close. Sales, delivery, and warehouse functions will continue at the other 3 locations. Earlier this month, PepsiCo said its North American beverage sales fell 3% in the third quarter as consumers pulled back on buying its drinks and snacks. Decision 24 is just days away, and we here at Salem News Channel have you covered. Here's a preview from one of our hosts on the West Coast.
Christina, thank you. This is an important election, and Salem News has you covered. I'm Jeff Vaughn. I'll bring you the latest news and information on election night from Los Angeles, where I'll be watching the California races that could decide the balance of power in the Senate and the House. Watch Decision 24 on the Salem News Channel.
Troubled car maker Stellantis reported a 27% plunge in net revenue during the third quarter. All regions except South America reported double-digit dips in revenues, led by North America, which plunged 42% to $12.4 billion.
In Dallas, Christina Ohio, Salem News Channel.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve coffee maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're confronting corruption. We're challenging the politicians. We're calling for investigations. We're serving the poor. We're doing it all today, Bill.
Yeah, we are. We're busy.
What a Friday.
Look at this.
And my absolute favorite thing to do at the end of each week,
yeah,
ride off into the sunset.
Oh, yeah, this is
because
wonderful.
I got a whole 2 days of ranch work coming up. We added some horses. We got fences. I've got pastures to fix. I still have no cattle, so I'm literally the definition of all hands.
Yes, but it's wonderful. Mrs. Jeff now has a horse that she's been pining for, and somehow Jeff ended up with 2 horses.
That's exactly it.
Now, if that isn't the perfect thing of your wife wanting something and the fruition of it, she wants one thing and you end up with 2. That is how she rolls.
And she's texted me. She's like,
Yeah.
I've got the animals I want. I'm going to decorate the house for Christmas. She is so happy.
so
She's
excited.
Mrs.
Yay.
Jeff's very happy.
Oh, I'm so excited.
But each Friday, we like to wrap up the show with our poet laureate Jeff Hildebrandt. Cowboy
morning.
poets. Good morning,
Good
Jeffrey.
morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Listen, I heard your heated conversation about price gouging in our nation. I think you're wise to question why the cost of diapers seems so high that parents don't know what to do to clean up after number 2. Another thing that has to stop is the rising cost of soda pop, or the insane price we have to pay for candy that we gave away to trick-or-treaters yesterday. I do not have a good solution, but no, there is no quick resolution. So I'd suggest take one chill pill and just enjoy more Jeff and Bill.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I love the number 2
awesome.
reference. That makes a 6th grader neat giggle. That is amazing. You rock.
Oh, Jeffrey, you have a gift and talent that's just unmatched. Unmatched, truly.
That is incredible.
That's been said a lot of ways. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I told you this. I have some books of poetry, and one guy stopped me and said, I have one of your books, and I keep it on my bedside table, and I read your poetry every night, and it puts me right to sleep. So I don't really know how to take that. But
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
My wife says the same thing to me. Sometimes the conversations everybody
It's a
sleep.
place of comfort. By the way,
Yes.
we've got 2 of them here. Positive Rhymes for Perilous Times and Riding for the Boss and the Brand.
Yeah.
Jeff, this next week is going to be perilous. Our country's deeply divided. It could go either way. And no matter which way it goes, half the country, maybe even more than half the country, if they both get less, either one of them gets less than 50%, you got a majority of the country that's not happy right now.
Yeah.
What are the positive rhymes you have for perilous times?
Well, I think focus is a big thing. I don't have a specific rhyme. I'm trying to stay away from politics during the last week. But I will tell you it's a matter of perspective a lot of times. For example, when they got back from their honeymoon, the bride called mom in tears and said her husband's language is the worst she's heard in years. He's using those 4-letter words, she said, I cannot adjust. Words like what? Her mother asked. Words like wash and iron and dust. So, everybody has their own perspective on what's bad and what's good.
Oh, that is true.
How about those of us that long for the good old days? Do you want to read that poem?
Oh, my eyes are so
Positive
bad. I don't.
rhymes? Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, you go ahead and read it. I'll
I'm gonna
take
do
the royalty.
My best Jeff Hildebrandt. Good old days. I don't know, but it seems to me that all the popularity of Western songs and cowboy rhymes is because we long for simpler times, when folks were free to make their way without restrictions like today, a time when you could ride for days and never see a city haze, when air was clean and streams were pure and the strongest smell was cow manure, a time when every day was spent not thinking about the government, Remember how it used to be? Folks used to be more neighborly when wrong was wrong and right was right, and streets were safe to walk at night. But now we lock our doors and pray we'll just survive another day. But there's one truth that helps us cope. Despite our troubles, there is hope. The God who made the earth and sky is there to help us all get by, so we can sing of better times in Western songs and cowboy rhymes. Is that a good one from
That is so cool.
Jeff Hildebrandt? That's in his book, Positive Rhymes for Perilous Times.
That can be found just in time for the holiday season on Amazon.
That's
so,
exactly right.
for all of your shopping needs and stocking stuffers, it would fit right in the stocking.
Hold it up, because it's just the right size to put in a Christmas stocking.
It is. It's just the right size.
That's
It'd be a
exactly
great
right.
stocking stuffer to send, to family. You can check him out on Amazon.
Yeah.
And there's El Jefe on the back of a horse in the back.
No.
Oh, yeah. Moab, Utah.
Was that?
Yeah.
Was it? Wow.
Yeah. Nice.
Do you remember that horse? Do you remember the?
Do I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember him well. He was so tall.
Yeah.
How many hands?
That I had to, how many hands? I don't know. It took like 3 or 4 to get me on him.
Oh, wow.
But it was required a step ladder to get me up to the stirrups.
Oh, no way.
This was a tall, wide horse.
Wow.
And I had not stretched that morning.
Oh, geez.
And so I was out doing something for AT&T cable network. We were talking about the Westerns channel. And so they wanted a nice setting. So we went to Moab. And we're in that beautiful area, and they filmed some movies out there. And I remember being on that horse and riding around a little bit. Then the crew shows up and the director, and he says, okay, here's my vision. I want you to come down this rise with the host of the show, side by side, riding down towards the cameras. Okay. Well, this was a trail ride horse. You know what they do?
Yeah. Follow the trail.
Stay on the trail.
They do not ride side by side.
Right,
I'll tell you
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
And as hard as I tried, I could not get that horse in back of the other one or beside it. So anyway, we rode down there. We sat. I was on that horse for 2 hours. And anyway, like I say, it was a trail ride horse. At the end, the director said, okay, I want you to ride down. We're overlooking the Colorado River. I want you to ride down, and as you're riding, kind of turn back to the camera and wave. Okay, I can do that. So I ride down, turn to the camera, wave, turn the horse around. We come back up towards the camera. Well, this is a union horse. His time is up, and he heads to the barn. And I'm pulling on the reins as hard as I can, and this horse is like just going like this, but he's going straight. He's heading for the barn, whether you can see it or not. Anyway, after 2 hours on that horse, I could barely get my leg over the cantle and to slide down. And they didn't bring the ladder back, so I slid down. I hit the ground, and then I spent the next a couple hours in a hot bath. Just
recovering.
That was
now Jeff Hildebrandt, 710 KNUS Poet Laureate. We only got about a minute or two left. You got a final poet for us to ride off into the weekend sunset?
I can't play the guitar. My fingers just won't let me. I've taken lessons lots of times. All it ever gets me are blisters on my fingertips and soreness in my wrist. The thrill of making music is one thing that I've missed. Though I can't play the guitar, I'm just an old word slinger. And while there is a trace of envy for musicians who can play and also sing, I don't have to tote an instrument. You see, hot air is all I bring.
Oh, that's great.
That is a good one. Positive Rhymes for Perilous Times, available by Jeff Hildebrandt, 710 KNUS Poet Laureate. Thanks so much for joining the Jeff and Bill
My
Show.
pleasure. Have a good weekend.
All right, we'll continue. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve coffee maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you'll always pay half price. Why pay retail when you can get what you want at 50% off? Just go to RockyMountainBargains.com and save. Here's this week's featured item.
A Keurig K Supreme Plus Smart Serve coffee maker valued at $200. Get it now for half price.
Get it now at RockyMountainBargains.com for 50% off. RockyMountainBargains.com, where you always pay half price. Restrictions apply. Go to RockyMountainBargains.com for complete details.
Wow, what a show. If you missed any of it, go to 710KUS.com. We covered the growing corruption with Colorado's judicial system, how Republicans plan to address Jenna Griswold, and the failure of the Secretary of State's office. We even debated price gouging.
Oh, that was fun.
Plus help the poor. Oh, my goodness. What a show. Again, go to 710KNUS.com to download the podcast and stick with 710KNUS next week for all the election coverage you need. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Have a great weekend.